Chapter 1151. After the two of them left the forest, they rode on the Blue Phoenix. As they spoke, they could vaguely hear the rumbling of the Qingming River in midair. Dengming saw that Lu Ping was evasive about how he knew these secrets, but he was not disappointed. He knew that these things probably involved some of his qualifications, so he straightened his expression and was about to say something when he suddenly heard Lu Ping shout, "Be careful!" Dengming's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know where the danger was coming from. Just as he was at a loss for what to do, a strong force suddenly came from behind and pressed him onto the Cyan Luan's back. Then, he heard Lu Qin-er's angry cry and Lu Ping's shout, "Lone Eagle Clan, how dare you!" Among the earth-shaking sword cry, a shrill cry sounded and a huge wind almost blew Dengming off the back of Lu Qin-er. Fortunately, Lu Ping, who was sitting cross-legged next to him, stretched out a hand and placed it on his shoulder, stabilizing him. After a while, the wind calmed down and Dengming raised his head. Lu Qin-er was still flying in the sky, but the circle of feathers under her neck had not completely calmed down. Obviously, Lu Qin-er had been frightened just now. Dengming looked at Lu Ping and saw that he was looking back in the direction of Magic Cloud City. Dengming did not understand and asked, "What's going on?" Lu Ping's expression was calm, and no one knew what he was thinking. He answered, "It's a Lone Eagle Clan's Dharma adept. It looks like he's heading for Qin-er. I've already defeated him, but it looks like he's also heading for Magic Cloud City." Because Lu Ping had concealed his cultivation to the core forging stage, and Dengming and Lu Qin-er were both at the late stage of the core forging stage, they were targeted by the Lone Eagle. Unexpectedly, in the end, Lu Ping kicked an iron plate and retreated awkwardly. "Lone Eagle?" A strange expression appeared on Dengming's face as he said, "This race has always been solitary. For them to appear in Magic Cloud City at this critical juncture, could it be that they're targeting the Peacock royalty?" A strange smile appeared on Lu Ping's face and he said, "Maybe they are cooperating with the Peacock royalty." Cooperation? Dengming seemed to be listening to a joke and said, "How is that possible? Everyone in the cultivation world knows that the Lone Eagle is the enemy of all the direct descendants of Peng Daoren in the Demon Clan. The Peacock royalty is the most powerful of the direct descendants of Peng Daoren." Lu Ping did not refute what Dengming said. If he had not seen the Lone Eagle Ingli become the fiancé of the Peacock royalty princess in the Five Elements turtle, even Lu Ping would have thought that what he had just said was just a joke. The Qingming River came from the north, turned to the southeast hundreds of miles away from Magic Cloud City, and then rushed all the way to the sea. In fact, many people in the cultivation world believed that Magic Cloud City should have been built along the Qingming River, which was only hundreds of miles away. If it was built along the Qingming River, perhaps Magic Cloud City would become more prosperous. Otherwise, there would be no need to dredge a canal to connect Magic Cloud City with the Qingming River. When the Charm Pavilion was promoted to a large sect, the treasure ship went along the Qingming River and then turned to Magic Cloud City through this canal. Lu Ping and the others had also flown all the way to the Qingming River along this canal. On the Qingming River, Lu Ping had been riding on a black tortoise for more than half a month. Compared with the Yulon River, the biggest difference between the Qingming River and the Yulon River was the difference in speed. The Yulon River was only turbulent in the upper reaches. In the middle and lower reaches, the river was wide and the water was smooth. On both sides of the river, huge alluvial plains were formed. But the Qingming River was different. The upper and lower reaches of the Qingming River had a great difference in terrain, and the water was quite turbulent. Only the middle reaches were flat, and the water flow slowed down, forming a wide plain. Once again, an undetectable brilliance flashed in the sky. If it were not for Lu Ping, who had a strong divine sense, he would not have been able to notice that there was a cultivator flying in the sky just now. Lu Ping looked at the river and asked, "You three, tell me, how many people have we met along the way? How many people have we met? If you guess correctly, there will be a reward." A huge white snake suddenly floated up from the bottom of the river, and its huge body swam around Lu Daguay in a big circle. The ripples made by the snake even made Lu Daguay's body, which was now 60 or 70 feet long, sway back and forth. The white snake spoke, and it was the voice of Lu Linger. She said, "Father, what is the reward this time?" "Oh," Lu Ping said, "Let me see." After saying that, he lowered his head and rummaged through his storage artifact. Lu Ping had consecutively killed Wen Yuan, Nan Yu, and Guang Yu in the South China Sea. These three people were all influential figures in their respective sects, and naturally, they were rich. This was especially so for Nanyu Laozu. As one of the three late Dharma adepts of the Yulin sect, his wealth could no longer be described as rich. Even the hundreds of top-grade spirit stones that Nanyu Laozu had on him were no longer important to him. Among them, there were two high-grade heaven-level spirit items, which made White Forehead Lu Xiaohai and Lu Taohua extremely excited. The high-grade heaven-level metal attribute spirit item, 7 Kill Copper, and the high-grade heaven-level wood attribute spirit item, Longevity Mountain Bamboo, were both treasures that could only be encountered by chance in the world of practitioners. And these were just a small portion of the treasures in Nanyu Laozu's storage artifact. In the world of practitioners, a great adept of the late Dharma stage could almost rely on his own strength to support a medium-sized sect. Sects with great adepts would usually divide their own inheritance system into two parts. One part was in the heritage grotto where the sect was based, and the other part was in the hands of the great adept. Therefore, every great adept would be able to see a human-shaped treasure trove. It was just that this human-shaped treasure trove itself was extremely powerful, and ordinary people would not dare to have any designs on it. From the South China Sea to now, along the way, Lu Ping had used various methods to distribute many treasures that he did not need to use to his followers. Even so, the collection in Lu Ping's hands was still so rich that it made people's hair stand on end. "Hey, there is actually a piece of meteorite iron here," Lu Ping said as he took out a piece of black iron from the storage artifact and said, "It is indeed the collection of a great adept. Even the meteorite iron, a top-grade spirit treasure, has been collected in such a large piece. You little guys are lucky. The quality of this meteorite iron can even be used to refine spirit treasures. If you have such a meteorite iron in your hands, it will be much easier to improve your natal magic weapons in the future. This meteorite iron can be used to resist the thunder tribulation." Lu Linger was suddenly overjoyed. This meteorite iron had a wide range of uses. She practiced isotribute techniques, and this meteorite iron could also be used. So, for fear that others would take the lead, she hurriedly said, "Linger has found 12 people." Lu Hai sprang out from the bottom of the river and suddenly threw Lu Linger into the water. He laughed and said, "No, I found 13 people." Lu Linger sprang out from the water again and angrily said to Lu Hai, "How dare you sneak attack? Where are there 13 people?" After saying that, she swung her body, and the crystal-white snake tail smashed towards Lu Hai's body. The two of them immediately fought in the middle of the Qingming River, and the originally rapid river flow became even more turbulent because of the two water spirits frolicking. Lu Ping watched the two play and felt very happy, but he still asked Lu Bai, who was experimenting with various spells in the river, "Buyer, what do you think?" Lu Bai thought for a moment and said, "There should be 15 people." "Impossible?" Lu Hai and Lu Linger suddenly gave up playing in the Qingming River. Two giant snakes of 10 feet long came towards Lu Bai and asked in unison, "Father, is what Big Sister said true?" Lu Ping smiled and shook his head. Lu Bai looked slightly startled. Lu Hai and Lu Linger giggled and said, "Big Sister is really wrong." But Lu Ping stretched out his hand and flicked out 2 gusts of wind. Poof, poof. 2 sounds were accompanied by 2 cries of pain from Lu Hai and Lu Linger. She heard Lu Ping say, "You two mischievous brats, it's not just 15 people, but 18. Your big sister even spotted 2 mid-Dharma adepts, but you two still dare to laugh at them. Especially you, Linger. You couldn't even see an early Dharma adept. You've been getting more and more distracted in your cultivation lately." After being scolded by Lu Ping, Lu Ling dove headfirst into the water and didn't come back up even after a long time. Lu Bai, who was beside her, asked, "Father, it's only been 2 hours, but there are already so many people swimming downstream." "Father, I just realized that among the 18 people, there are actually 5 mid-Dharma adepts, and there are even 7 or 8 Dharma adepts. Could it be that something has happened to so many Dharma adepts?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, It's not just 5 mid-stage Dharma adepts. Among the 5, there are 2 grand adepts. Regardless of what's happening downstream, we'll just ignore it. After saying that, Lu Ping threw the meteoric iron into Lu Bai's hands, which made Lu Hai and Lu Linger very envious. Lu Bai smiled gently and said, "Father is teasing you. How can I use such a big piece of meteoric iron alone? When the time comes, the 3 of us will use it together to improve the magic weapons in our hands." Lu Hai and Lu Linger were overjoyed, and Lu Linger even said loudly, "I know that big sister is the best." At this moment, Black Turtle Lu Daguay, who had been moving forward in the Qingming River, suddenly raised his head and said, "Master, there is a huge monster coming in front." After Lu Daguay accepted part of the bloodline of the Tyrant Turtle clan, his strength had increased a lot. He had a secret method that could hear sounds from a very far distance in the water. When Lu Ping heard the huge monster, he first thought that there might be some high-level demon cultivator who had transformed into his original body and was stirring up trouble in the Qingming River. But at this time, Lu Daguay's voice came and said, "It's a ship, a very big ship." A very big ship. Could it be a treasure ship? Whose treasure ship was it? Lu Ping stared at the river surface. Through the light fog on the river surface, he really vaguely saw a huge outline coming on the river surface. Without Lu Ping's instructions, Samling shrunk his body size and climbed onto the back of the black turtle. When he looked again, the huge shadow of the ship broke through the cover of the light fog. A huge Debao ship with a length of 350 feet and a width of 700 feet appeared in Lu Ping's sight. Lu Ping sat on the back of the black turtle and continued to go south. When he passed by the treasure ship, he happened to see 2 huge words on the side of the treasure ship: Northern Alliance. Chapter 1152. It was the Northern Alliance's treasure ship. Lu Ping's eyes narrowed as he looked at the treasure ship. He naturally knew that the treasure ship was carrying one of the 3 Dharma adepts from the Northern Alliance, Hanya Laozu, who was also one of the main culprits behind the destruction of the Northern Alliance. Before the Northern Alliance adept, Lin Jingting, died, he had used the Northern Alliance's Elixir Pavilion's inheritance cave as a condition, hoping that Lu Ping would be able to kill Hanya Laozu at the right time. He did not expect to encounter the Northern Alliance's treasure ship here. When Hanya Laozu led a few Dharma adepts under his command and some of the Northern Alliance disciples on the treasure ship to the South Sea, many people had guessed that Hanya Laozu might be going to the South Sea to establish his own sect. Unexpectedly, after Hanya Laozu wandered around the South Sea, he actually went north along the Qingming River. What was Hanya Laozu's intention? Could it be, as many people had guessed, that Hanya Laozu was really the spy that Wuxing School had planted, and this time, he was going to bring the treasure ship back to his sect? Thinking about the many Dharma adepts that flew over the Qingming River, Lu Ping's intuition told him that it had something to do with the Northern Alliance's treasure ship. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly felt that someone on the treasure ship was watching him. Then, not only on the treasure ship, but in the sky above the Qingming River, there seemed to be someone spying on him in the void. Therefore, Lu Ping first looked at the huge treasure ship in shock, then sat on the back of the black tortoise as if nothing had happened, and continued to drift downstream. After Lu Ping had traveled dozens of miles downstream, Lu Linger appeared out of nowhere and said, "Father, are we really not going to see what is going on?" Lu Ping laughed impatiently. "You are always the first to lose your cool. The treasure ship is surrounded by an inescapable net. If we act rashly, we will definitely be surrounded by everyone. Then what should we do?" Lu Ping patted the black tortoise's shell and said, "Let's continue our journey. Even pure young cultivators would have to avoid a treasured ship with a great cultivator guarding it. It's not that easy to scheme against it. Let's just have some fun, and it won't be too late to come back when the show begins." When Lu Linger saw that Lu Ping didn't really plan to miss out on the fun, she became excited again. Suddenly, Lu Ping exclaimed in surprise and took out a nameplate from his waist. This token was the identification of a Zhenling sect disciple. Lu Ping's name and status in Zhenling sect were engraved on it. At this moment, the nameplate was flashing with a hazy light, and it became hotter and hotter. At this time, this token flashed with a dim light, and it became hotter and hotter. A disciple of Zhenling was nearby, and he was in danger. The identity nameplates of the sect's disciples could sense each other within a certain range. When they encountered danger, they could also ask for help from their fellow sect brothers within the range. Furthermore, these identity nameplates could only be used by the owner of the nameplate. After the owner died, the nameplate would also shatter. Thus, there was no need to worry about someone setting up a trap with this nameplate. Then there was really a disciple of Zhenling nearby. Lu Ping rose into the air and waved his hand. Lu Dagui turned from the water into the size of a palm and fell into Lu Ping's hand. Then, the thin water under his feet and the long sword moved side by side. In a trance, Lu Ping was already dozens of feet away, and in the blink of an eye, he had disappeared into the woods on the bank of Qingming River. In the depths of a forest on the north bank of Qingming River, a fierce battle was going on between two people, and the intense spiritual qi caused the surrounding trees to sway. A sloppy young cultivator was chewing on a piece of dog's tail grass as he watched the battle from the top of a huge tree. The surrounding vegetation had long been destroyed, and only the tree he was on was undamaged. After a while, the young cultivator seemed to be extremely annoyed. He spat out the dog's tail grass in his mouth and said, Hey, old six, that's enough. Why can't you take care of these two early Dharma stage wild cultivators after so long? You're the leader of the Six Directions house. I think you should just give up your position. Don't bring shame to your mid-Dharma stage cultivation and bring shame to the direct disciples of Jiushuan Tower. In the middle of the battle, the cultivator who was fighting 1 against 2 had his two opponents completely suppressed. However, the two of them were very tenacious. Although they were at a disadvantage, they were not completely defeated. The 9 Xin Tower adept, who was addressed as number 6, unleashed a spell, forcing back the adept who was trying to break free from his suppression. He said angrily, Number 3, it's easy for you to say that. These two are not wild adepts. Both of them have a natural great ability, which is considered good even among early Dharma adepts, especially since this one has mastered the earth element body. Why don't you tell me, is the earth element body that easy to break free from? The cultivator on the tree casually pulled a branch from the tree and continued chewing on it. He said in a muffled voice, Then do you want me to help you? Get lost. The master of the Six Directions house rejected him without a second thought. He said, Although I have just gone through my first lightning tribulation and can only use 70 to 80% of my strength, I don't need you to interfere in taking care of these two people. The cultivator on the tree laughed twice, as if he had heard a joke. He said, You have to think carefully. It seems like they were asking for help just now. If they have help and you still can't take care of them, I'm afraid you'll be the one in trouble. The master of the Six Directions house laughed and said, Don't I still have you? Don't tell me you want to watch your junior brother get surrounded and attacked by them. Be careful. When we get back, those old fellows will punish you for not helping them. The cultivator on the tree suddenly jumped down and walked towards the side of the battle. As he walked, he said, Not helping them when they are dying. Does the 9 Directions house have such a crime? When the master of the Six Directions house saw him walking over, he hurriedly said, Hey, third brother, what are you doing? This is my cup of tea. The third cultivator who came down from the tree had an exasperated expression as he said, What are you talking about? Their help is already right in front of you, and you don't even know it. You're courting death. What? The master of the Six Directions house jumped in fright. To be able to sneak up to him without him noticing, this kind of strength immediately caused his heart to turn cold. His attacks also slowed down, allowing the two cultivators he was suppressing to catch their breaths. The two of them cooperated and attacked at the same time, causing the master of the Six Directions house to be flustered. After shouting for a long time, he finally regained control of the situation. When the master of the Six Directions house turned around, he saw the master of the Three Talents house, who was usually not serious, looking into the depths of the forest as if he was facing a great enemy. The master of the Three Talents house thought to himself, Could it be that the elders of these two cultivators have come? Why is third brother so nervous? At this moment, the master of the Three Talents house shouted, Who is the fellow Taoist in the forest? I am Chang Sankai of the 9 Mystical House. Greetings. Just as the voice rang out, a violent wave inexplicably swept out from Chang Sansai's body toward the forest. Along the way, it was as if a tornado had swept away the clouds. The towering trees were uprooted, and the violent wave seemed to have plowed through the entire world. However, at this moment, a huge natural phenomenon suddenly appeared in the depths of the forest. The clouds in the sky seemed to be driven by someone and gathered above the forest. Immediately after, a wave of dense spiritual chi surged out from the depths of the forest like a flood. Half of the forest was submerged by this flood, and then it collided with the violent wave that was plowing through the trees. Rumble. In an instant, the entire world seemed to have gone silent. Then, Chang Sansai's expression changed. The torrent of spiritual chi that seemed to have descended from the sky overshadowed the violent hurricane that he had unleashed. The huge trees, sand, and rocks that were swept up into the air were smashed back toward Chang Sansai along with the torrent. The master of the Three Talents house felt as if he was going against the torrent of the entire Qingming River with his own strength. Before the torrent came crashing down on him, he was already somewhat discouraged. Using the power of heaven and earth for his own use and transforming the power of heaven and earth into his own body, this person's comprehension of spells and abilities was far above his own. Chang Sansai involuntarily took a few steps back. Hey, third brother Chang, can you do it? When the master of the Six Talents house saw that the master of the Three Talents house was at a disadvantage, he immediately let out a strange cry. Then, as if he had thought of something, he opened his mouth and asked the two cultivators that he had been suppressing, I say, where did the two of you come from? Shouldn't you reveal your identities now? One of them snorted coldly and said, in front of the master of the Three Talents house and the master of the Six Talents house of the Nine Mystical house, who has the right to reveal their identities. The other person said, Sir, you attacked right from the start. Did you ever think of asking about our origins? Ahahaha. The master of the Six Talents house laughed dryly. He could not see the figure of the person who had come, but third brother Chang had been at a disadvantage all along. Until now, that mischievous face of his had not made a single sound. It was obvious that the strength of the person who had come was far beyond their imagination. Hence, he hurriedly said, I have just advanced to the mid-dharma stage and am itching to fight. It is really a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Come to think of it, we have been fighting for so long, but I have not used any killing moves. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, a loud shout suddenly exploded in the master of the Six Talents house's ear. My hands are also itching to fight now. Please give me some pointers, master. Don't worry, I will not use any killing moves. The master of the Six Talents house was shaken by the divine will attack that was contained in this loud shout. His face turned pale, and the two Dharma adepts that he had suppressed took the opportunity to come out. Then, he saw a pair of flying swords suddenly appear in midair. The blades of the swords crossed and slashed towards his neck. The master of the Six Talents house was shocked and disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the master of the Three Talents house. It was obvious that he wanted to join forces with the master. Unexpectedly, just as the master of the Six Talents house steadied himself, he felt a slight chill at the back of his head. Then, with a crisp clang, a dark blue flying sword flashed in midair and disappeared. The double flying sword, the invisible water sword. The person who has come is the North Sea water sword deity, Lu Tianping. Chapter 1153. Chang Laosan's shout came from behind the leader of the Six Harmonies house. When he turned to look, he saw the leader of the Three Talents house holding a pair of copper symbols. He had just used this first calamity spiritual treasure to send the shapeless sword flying. A small tuft of hair fell, and the leader of the Six Harmonies house immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He knew that if the opponent really wanted his life, the attack from the leader of the Three Talents house's symbols would have been too late. The faint sound of footsteps came from the forest. The leader of the Three Talents house and the leader of the Six Harmonies house stared into the depths of the forest, as if trying to see through the cover of the trees to see who was approaching. On the other side, The two Dharma adepts who had just broken free from the suppression of the leader of the Six Harmonies house also looked pleasantly surprised. They walked towards the edge of the forest, as if they had already recognized who was approaching and were going to welcome them. The two of them were actually cultivators from the North Sea Jinling sect. Judging from their strength, they were not considered weak among the early Dharma adepts. No wonder there were rumors in the world of practitioners that the North Sea would soon have another large sect. Initially, Zhou Dongwang had thought that it was just a joke. What could a sect from the North Sea achieve? However, as Lu Tianping's reputation grew, many people in Central Plains began to take notice of the medium-sized sect behind Lu Tianping, the Jinling sect. Today, they saw that the two of them had actually managed to tangle with the head of the Six Harmonies house, one of the 9 heads of the 9 Harmonies house, for so long. Even though the head of the Six Harmonies house did not seem to be at his peak, it was still a commendable feat among the third-generation Dharma adepts. He was considered a tough opponent. Lu Ping's figure quickly walked out from the forest. Although he already knew who the two people fighting with the leader of the Six Harmonies house were, when he saw them, Lu Ping could not help but be overjoyed. Big brother, Brother Tianyuan, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. Both of you have also condensed your Dharma laws. The two people in front of him were Jiang Tianlin's eldest disciple, Xin Tian, and Lao Zu's disciple, Lu Xinyuan. Both of them were already at the early Dharma stage, and it was obvious that they were the first disciples of the third generation of Jinling's disciples to reach the Dharma stage after Lu Ping. It was just that after Xin Tian had advanced to the Dharma stage, he had become Tian Tian, which was really awkward to say. Fortunately, Lu Ping and he could be considered to be of the same lineage, and Xintian Zhenren was originally the eldest disciple of Tianlin Laozu. So Lu Ping simply called him eldest brother. However, when Lu Ping deliberately called him eldest brother, Tian Yuan could not help but laugh out loud. As for Tian Tian, he also had a helpless expression on his face. It was obvious that many people had already made fun of him because of this. After all, it was an extremely happy thing to meet in the Central Plains. Tian Tian smiled and said, "If your brother Tian Yuan and I still do not advance to the Dharma stage, we will be dragging the sect down. No matter what, we cannot let you bear the burden of the third generation of disciples alone." Lu Tianyuan, who was at the side, also sighed. "I never thought that after seeing you, junior brother, we would still be dragging the sect down. Junior brother, you have already gone through one lightning tribulation and reached the mid-Dharma stage." As there were still 2 leaders of the 9 Harmonies house here, the 3 of them only exchanged a few pleasantries before looking at the 2 of them. The leader of the 6 Harmonies house laughed and said, "You are indeed the North Sea water swordsman. As the saying goes, hearing about you is not as good as seeing you in person. Seeing you today has really broadened my horizons. Even third brother Chong could not do anything to you. I really admire you." "Humph." The housemaster of 3 talents snorted. They had only exchanged blows once, but they had a rough idea of each other's strength. Not only was he helpless against Lu Ping, but he was also at a disadvantage. "Humph." The housemaster of 3 talents snorted. "I dare not." Lu Ping naturally would not argue with others over this, and he would not take the initiative to provoke the heirs of these holy lands. He smiled slightly and said, "I am Lu Tianping of the North Sea Jinling. These 2 are my seniors. How do I address you 2? And do you have any grudges with my seniors?" The leader of the Trinity House pulled out another stalk of grass and chewed it in his mouth. His exchange with Lu Ping had shaken the inner Yuan in his chest. Even now, he had not completely calmed down, so how could he be in the mood to speak? The leader of the 6 Harmonies house smiled helplessly and said, "I believe the 3 of you already know that we are from the 9 Mysteries house. This is the leader of the Trinity House. His surname is Chong, so you can call him Chong Sankai. As for the person in charge of the 6 Harmonies house, his surname is Sun, so you can call me Sun Liuha." The 9 leaders of the 9 Mysteries house rarely used their own names in the world of practitioners. Usually, they used the name of the 9 Mysteries house they were in charge of. Practitioners in the world of practitioners would usually know their status in the 9 Mysteries house through this form of address. The leader of the Trinity House was naturally ranked 3rd among the 9 heirs of the 9 Mysteries house, and this Sun Liuha was naturally the 6th. Lu Ping did not wish to offend the two, so he cupped his hands together and said, "Nice to meet you." When Sun Liuhe saw the indifferent expression on Lu Ping's face, he knew that the latter was waiting for him to continue. "Hence," he said, "as for your two senior brothers, we do not wish to make things difficult for them. We are only warning the two of you not to interfere in this matter. In fact, this is also for the good of Lu Daoyu's two senior brothers and your sect." Lu Tianyuan did not seem to wish for Lu Ping to become enemies with the Nine Mysteries House because of this, so he said in a low voice, "This person has indeed not killed anyone." Lu Ping was startled. He then asked, "Why are my two senior brothers interfering?" Sun Liuhe was stunned. "Why? Does Lu Daoyu not know what Lu Daoyu is doing here?" Lu Ping said coldly, "What? Do you think I must have some ulterior motives for coming here?" Just as Sun Liuhe was about to speak, Chang Sankai interjected, "Since Lu Daoyu does not know anything, then let this matter rest. In any case, the Northern Alliance's treasure ship has great implications, and the 5 Holy Lands have already sent their people here. This matter is far from something that Lu Daoyu and your sect can handle. Rashly interfering will only bring you trouble. That's all I have to say. Lu Daoyu, good luck. Old Six, let's go." Sun Liuhe smiled at Lu Ping and the others before the two turned around and disappeared into the forest. After the two left, Lu Tianyuan asked, "Junior brother, didn't you go to the South Sea? Why are you here?" "I only activated my identity plate with the hope of getting lucky. I didn't expect a disciple of my sect to really be here, and it's you, junior brother." Lu Ping briefly told them about his trip to the South Sea, but he did not mention anything about the Samling 5 Elements leaf, the Golden Scales, the Sword of True Spirit, Dark Sky Island, and killing Nanyu Laozu. He only said that he met a Formation Master at the Dark Sky Array and obtained the inheritance of an Formation Master. Even so, the two sighed with emotion after listening to it, secretly praising Lu Ping's good luck. However, Tian said, there was a rumor in the cultivation world that the Formation Grandmaster of the Yuan clan had unlocked the 9 major formations of Dark Sky Island and obtained a great fortuitous opportunity after sneaking into Dark Sky Island. After leaving Dark Sky Island and killing the Yuan sect's great cultivator Nanyu, he disappeared without a trace. "Junior brother, you were there at the time. Do you know what happened?" Lu Ping was stunned for a moment before he asked, "Didn't the Yuan clan come forward to clarify the matter and say that Wen Yuan died over a decade ago? Who would believe that?" Lu Tianyuan continued, "Rumor has it that Wen Yuan may have obtained the heaven-opening relic. The rumor in the cultivation world is that either Wen Yuan took the treasure and left the Yuan clan, went into hiding, and then used a secret technique to extinguish his soul lamp, causing him to fake his death, or the Yuan clan tried to cover it up after obtaining the treasure. In short, they just don't believe that Wen Yuan has died. You must know that Wen Yuan was only at the mid-Dharma stage. Although he had some achievements in the field of formations, his own strength was limited. If someone really was impersonating him, then Li Shiqian from the Crystal Palace, Guangyu from the Guangfa sect, and Nanyu Laozu from the Yulin sect were not weaklings. How could they not see through it? As for the reason that Nanyu Laozu was able to kill him, it was naturally because of the heaven-opening relic. Many people saw the light that shot up into the sky that day, and it was also during that period of time that the entire cultivation world was filled with strange phenomena, especially the 6 holy lands, the Yuan clan, and several large demon tribes. The phenomenon was so vast that it was witnessed by many people. The soul lamp was connected to the cultivator's life. When a cultivator died, the soul lamp would definitely be extinguished, but this did not mean that the cultivator would definitely die. Many cultivators had mastered a secret technique. Once they fell into a dangerous situation, they would be alone and helpless. When faced with a life or death situation, they would use this secret technique to extinguish their own soul lamp. When the cultivator's sects found out about this, they would definitely send people to investigate. Therefore, when a cultivator was in danger, they would usually have this last chance of survival. If Wen Yuan really wanted to leave the Yuan clan, he could use this secret technique to extinguish his soul lamp and then hide on Kongming Island to avoid the investigation of the Yuan clan. After a long time, the Yuan clan would definitely think that Wen Yuan was dead. In this way, he would be able to take the treasure for himself and then change his appearance and live freely in the world. If Wen Yuan had not died at his hands, even Lu Ping himself would have believed that Wen Yuan had not died, but had instead hidden away with the treasure. Lu Ping naturally agreed with this speculation of the cultivation world. He said, "That is indeed a possibility. But what about the heaven-opening relic?" Tian Tian said, "That is why we are here. The so-called heaven-opening relic is naturally the treasure left behind by the seventh patriarch of the heaven-opening relic. The heaven-opening relic that Wen Yuan activated in the South Sea must have just taken shape. It is said that before Wen Yuan came out of Kongming Island, the tribulation clouds above Kongming Island had gathered for more than a year. This must have been the tribulation for the heaven-opening relic to take shape." Later, Wen Yuan was forced by Nanyu Laozu to activate the heaven-opening relic for the first time and kill Nanyu Laozu. However, it also caused the heaven-opening relic left behind by the time lock to respond. When the heaven-opening relic responded to each other, apart from the Holy Lands and sects, there was also one that appeared on the Northern Alliance's ship. The Northern Alliance's ship? That's right. The cultivators who have gathered here were originally going to the South Sea to kill Wen Yuan, but the appearance of the heaven-opening relic will only attract the response of all the heaven-opening relics. Wen Yuan has disappeared, and it is impossible to find him through the heaven-opening relics. Unexpectedly, after the treasure ship left behind by the Northern Alliance passed through the stormy sea, there was news of the heaven-opening relics responding to the heavenly phenomenon. Oh, so the heaven-opening relic will only respond when it appears for the first time. Chapter 1154. Two rays of light flashed across the sky one after the other. Sun Liuhe shouted from behind, "Lao San, Chang Lao San, how can you leave like this? Why are you leaving so fast?" The thing that Chang Sankai was chewing on had somehow turned into a small wooden stick. He put the stick to the side of his mouth and said, "In any case, I'm no match for him. I've already warned him, so what's the point of staying there?" Sun Liuhe made an exaggerated expression of surprise and said, "No way, this isn't your style, Chang Lao-san. You even said that you weren't a match for him. Is that North Sea water sword immortal really that powerful?" Chang Sankai immediately said angrily, "I lost to him in just one move. Boss Wei is only SOSO. Even Qian Liangyi can't do that. What do you think?" Sun Liuhe's lips twitched, but he couldn't say a word. Chang Sankai turned around and left. Sun Liuhe hesitated for a moment before he hurriedly followed and said, "Then what should we do? If they insist on interfering, there's nothing we can do." Chang Sankai sneered, "Are you stupid? If they don't want to live, why are you worried?" Sun Liuhe slapped his forehead, as if blaming himself for asking such a stupid question. Then he thought of something and said, "But we can't let anyone know about this. It's quite embarrassing." Chang Sankai continued flying, but he heard Sun Liuhe say, "No, we can't just let this go. We've suffered a loss at the hands of Lu Tianping, and the other families can't have it easy either. We have to think of a way to make them suffer as well." Lu Tianping was completely unaware that the two people from Zhoushuan Tower were secretly plotting against him. At this moment, he was asking Lu Tianyuan and Sun Liuhe about some matters in the sect. Currently, among the third generation of practitioners, only your senior brother Tianyuan and I have advanced to the Dharma stage. All these years, your senior brother Tianyuan and I have been guarding the Yingtian courtyard, but we have not heard of any third-generation disciples advancing to the Dharma stage. However, a few years ago, there was news from Uncle Master Tianfeng from the East Sea. It seems that junior brother Xianchu has also reached the threshold of the Dharma stage. Junior brother Xuanchu's talent is above both of us, so he must have advanced to the Dharma stage by now. Oh, the Yingtian courtyard has always been guarded by two senior brothers. What about Marshal and Tianqin? The other two have already left the courtyard. Who did the sect send? The two looked at each other. In the end, it was Tian who said, "Marshal Uncle Tianqin returned to the North Sea 5 years ago. After 3 years of seclusion, he forcefully summoned the lightning tribulation. Right now, Marshal Uncle Tianshan is guarding the courtyard." Lu Ping's heart sank as he exclaimed, "It failed?" Lu Tianyuan shook his head and said, "That's not it. I survived." He had survived, but it was not a success. Lu Ping naturally knew the difference. He asked, "What happened?" Lu Tianyuan said, "I forcefully went through the tribulation, and my injuries were too severe. Master Fornax said that I would not be able to recover without more than 100 years of rest. Even if I recover in the future, although there is still a glimmer of hope for me to improve further, it is still very slim." Cultivation was like this. It was best to always be able to walk on a narrow and correct path. Otherwise, if there was even the slightest mistake, it would often be the end of one's cultivation career. Tian Qin Laozu's personality was competitive and stubborn. Forcefully summoning the lightning tribulation probably had something to do with Master Tian Ling Laozu's successful advancement to the mid-Dharma stage. Compared to her, Master Lu Tianling was also competitive, but there was a sense of rationality that controlled her actions. It was precisely because of this competitive nature that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had finally returned to her side. Mei Tianqin Laozu was also able to return to the sect, and Jinling had chosen her to be the leader. Although Lu Ping was talented in alchemy, he did not dare to compare himself to Fornax Laozu, who had immersed himself in alchemy for many years. Furthermore, he was Tian Qin Laozu's teacher. Since he said that Tian Qin Laozu would need more than 100 years to recover, then this period of time could only be the shortest, or even longer. Lu Ping sighed to himself. If Tian Qin Laozu did not fight for these 8 to 10 years, he would not have wasted 80 to 100 years in one go. At least in this period of time, Jinling would have one less Dharma adept. In the long run, Tian Qin Laozu had made a decision that harmed others without benefiting herself. Ever since Tian Kong Laozu had fallen, and with the addition of Tian Qin Laozu, Jinling had lost 2 Dharma adepts in a short period of time. Fortunately, Tian Tian and Tian Yuan had both advanced to the Dharma stage, and Lu Tianyuan had absorbed the Dharma soul that Tian Kong Laozu had left behind. As long as he did not die prematurely, Jinling had an 80% chance of having another mid-Dharma adept in the next 100 years. Currently, the number of Dharma adepts in Jinling's sect was sufficient. In fact, the number of Dharma adepts in Jinling's sect was already comparable to that of the smaller, weaker sections. However, they were still lacking in the number of late and mid-Dharma adepts. The composition of the Dharma adepts in the sect was somewhat illogical. Has the Songhai sect made any moves in recent years? Lu Ping asked about the situation of the other sects in the North Sea training world. Ever since the fall of Zhangxi, the Songhai sect has become extremely low-key. They no longer have any direct confrontations with our sect. Even in the past, they often joined forces with Xianling's sect. Lu Ping sighed and said, "This Songhai sect has always been a problem. Have you found out who is behind them? They are very mysterious, but they should be from the Central Plains. In recent years, many of the Songhai sect have gone to the Central Plains from the East Sea. However, after arriving in the Central Plains, no one knows where they went." Lu Tianyuan paused and said, "There is another piece of news that might interest you, junior brother. That Ouyang Weijian from Xianling's sect has advanced to the Dharma stage, and he did so before us." Lu Ping nodded and said, "This is expected. After spending so much time with the direct disciples of the Crystal Palace, if he still could not advance to the Dharma stage, he would have been thrown out by the Crystal Palace long ago." At the same time, the battle between Magic Cloud City and Mara's army had reached its climax. At this time, the entire Magic Cloud City had been enveloped by the city-protecting formation. The teleporter in the city had also been cut off from the nearby void by Mara's army and could no longer function. The entire city-protecting formation had become dangerously red under the fierce attacks of Mara's army. The city-protecting formation would not be able to hold on for much longer. Above Magic Cloud City, several Dharma adepts looked sullen. An old man shouted angrily at one of the young Dharma adepts, "Didn't you say that the power of Magic Cloud City was enough to withstand the arrival of Mara's army? In fact, Mara's army is twice as strong as what you said. Now that Magic Cloud City is about to collapse, the Yuan family is the culprit." Yuan Jinglei, who was standing to one side, was furious when he heard this. Just as he was about to curse, he was stopped by a practitioner next to him. It was Yuan Ku from the Yuan family. Yuan Ku said coldly, "Senior Mu Yun, There is one thing that you don't seem to understand. We, the Yuan family, are here to help. If we didn't come, there would be many Mara besieging Magic Cloud City. Do you think that Magic Cloud City would be able to hold on until now? Mu Yun Laozu was rendered speechless by Yuan Ku's words. He naturally knew that it was unreasonable for him to vent his anger on them. However, at this time, Magic Cloud City was in a precarious situation. Mu Yun Laozu really needed an excuse to vent his anger. Mu Yun Laozu did not say anything. Xian Yun Laozu, who was standing to one side, said, "Junior brother Mu Yun, you are a little rash. The friends of the Yuan family are now besieging Magic Cloud City with us. No matter what, this is the time to find a solution. If anyone still tries to undermine us at this time, don't blame the old man for being merciless." Xian Yun Laozu was the city lord of Magic Cloud City and a proper late Dharma adept. As soon as he said this, even Mu Yun Laozu could not help but say, "The old man was rude earlier. I hope the Yuan family will forgive him." Yuan Jinglei snorted coldly. Yuan Ku, who was standing to one side, nodded and said with a smile, "It's understandable that Senior Mu Yun is worried about the safety of the sect. However, Xian Yun Laozu said at this time, let's go. Senior Sister Baiyun has been guarding this sect's formation. We can't just sit around and do nothing. There are actually 2 Azuras in Mara's army. This is really a tough battle." As soon as he said this, a commotion suddenly came from the west of Magic Cloud City. There seemed to be screams and curses ringing out. Xian Yun Laozu frowned and said, "What's going on? How can we panic at a time like this? Who's guarding over there?" Mu Yun Laozu said, "Junior brother Chong Yun is guarding over there. I'm afraid that something bad has happened. The old man, let's go and take a look." However, before Mu Yun Laozu could make a move, a streak of flame had already flown over. Xian Yun Laozu stretched out his finger and pointed right at the center of the flame. A flustered and exasperated voice with a hint of fear rang out from the scattering flames. Master has been plotted against and has already fallen. The murderer is a person in red." Mu Yun Laozu did not say a word. He turned around and disappeared into the void around him. At this time, Xian Yun Laozu's face was also very gloomy. He said, "At this time, the west of the city must be in danger. I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to go to the west of the city to stabilize the situation. The old man will be here soon." This time, 3 of the 5 Dharma adepts from the Yuan family, as well as more than 10 core forging experts, had already been sent out to defend the city walls with the Magic Cloud City cultivators. At this time, Xian Yun Laozu was only left with 2 mid-Dharma adepts, Yuan Ku and Yuan Jinglei. Yuan Ku and Yuan Jinglei knew that the situation in Magic Cloud City had reached an extremely dangerous situation. Hearing this, they also moved to the west of the city. Xian Yun Laozu suddenly exhaled and said word by word, "There are spies in Magic Cloud City. My friends, please be careful. Disciples of Magic Cloud City, listen up. Once you find the spies, surround and kill them on the spot." The Magic Cloud City had a circumference of dozens of miles. It was a huge city. Although the voice of the idol cloud ancestor was not loud, it spread to every corner of the Magic Cloud City. It was a marvelous technique. However, before many of the Magic Cloud City cultivators could be impressed by Xian Yun Laozu's remarkable skills, a shrill scream came from the south of the city. The high-pitched scream almost tore the eardrums of everyone present. Oh no, it's Brother Qing Yun. 2 mid-Dharma adepts had fallen in Magic Cloud City one after another, and the cultivators in the city were suddenly in chaos. Everyone was in danger, and the defense against Mara outside the city was getting weaker. Magic Cloud City was about to fall. Chapter 1155. Magic Cloud City had lost 2 mid-Dharma adepts in succession, and they were killed by a sneak attack in the city. This made everyone in Magic Cloud City feel insecure. Xian Yun Laozu was even more furious. With a flash of light under his feet, he had already arrived at the south of the city. The top of the southern wall had long since fallen into a state of chaos. The only ones capable of calming down and resisting Imo Luo's tide-like attacks were the disciples from Magic Cloud City. As for the cultivators who had temporarily stepped forward to assist in the defense, They had long since scattered like birds and beasts. Several disciples of Qingyun Laozu were guarding Qingyun Laozu's body. When they saw Xianyun Laozu coming, they all cried and said, "Uncle, please avenge Master." Qingyun Laozu's chest was pierced through, and his heart had disappeared. Obviously, he had been killed by a sneak attack from behind. However, Qingyun Laozu was a real mid-Dharma adept. It had been nearly 200 years since he had passed his first thunder calamity. He could be considered a veteran Dharma adept. How could he be killed so easily by a sneak attack? Could it be that the murderer was a grand practitioner? Thinking of this, even Xianyun Laozu could not help but feel a chill. At this critical moment, what did it mean for a grand practitioner to be stirring up trouble in the city? Xianyun Laozu, who was not a grand practitioner himself, knew very well what it meant. Moreover, the other party was obviously proficient in the art of concealment. The old man will go and capture the murderer himself. You and the rest of you should first take care of junior brother Qingyun's body, and then do your best to guard the city wall. Do not let Mara cross the city wall. The free cloud old ancestor said this and turned around to leave. However, he heard a loud sound that shook the sky. The entire Great Protective Array trembled. The Great Protective Array that was already red became even more dazzling. A loud roar came from outside the city. The free cloud old ancestor's footsteps stopped, and his expression changed. The Azura had made a move. The idle cloud ancestor did not dare to be careless. His body flashed, and he appeared in the direction where Azura had appeared. However, just as he was about to step out of the city's protective formation, the entire Magic Cloud City's protective formation suddenly shook violently. This time, it was different from the chaotic tremors caused by Mara's attack or the impact of Azura's attack on a certain part of the formation. Instead, the entire formation was trembling. Something must have gone wrong with the formation plate of the city-protecting Grand Formation. Not only was Baiyun Laozu, who was also a Grand Cultivator, standing guard there, but there were also disciples of Magic Cloud City guarding it. How could there be a problem? Oh no, junior sister Baiyun. Xianyun Laozu's footsteps paused again. The Azura outside the city let out another loud roar, and the city-protecting formation shook again. Where? Save that place first. He was panicking. A great late Dharma adept was really panicking now. The Northern Pavilion Master of the Skyward Pavilion was also panicking. He had been instigated by Sun Liuha to intercept Lu Tianping of the North Sea. At this moment, how could he not understand that he had been tricked by those two bastards from the Nine Xin Tower? Third, they were immoral, and sixth, they were indecent. What a great reputation! How could the 5 great holy lands produce 2 such hateful direct disciples? They were simply a disgrace to the cultivators of the holy lands. How could the 9 mystical tower allow the 2 of them to take on this mission? In fact, when Sima Chongfeng heard Chang Sankai and Sun Liuha talking about how great Lu Tianping of the North Sea was, and how the heirs of the 5 great holy lands were only SOSO, he already knew what the 2 of them were up to. However, he still could not help but come. The only thing that persisted was the pride in his heart and his curiosity towards this water sword deity who had risen from a poor place like the North Sea and made a name for himself. It was only now that Sima Chongfeng understood that the reason why those 2 unrefined and frivolous fellows had used such despicable methods to instigate him was because they were targeting his pride and curiosity. They had predicted that he would not be able to help but come. After understanding the cause and effect, Sima Chongfeng immediately understood that the 2 of them had probably already suffered a loss at the hands of Lu Tianping. They had schemed to bring him here with them to bear the reputation of the 5 great holy lands. Moreover, no one knew if the 2 of them had instigated others to come. The more people who came, the more they would lose. Everyone would be tarnished, and naturally, no one would laugh at anyone else. It was a classic case of harming others without benefiting oneself. Only those 2 bastards from the Nine Xin Tower would dare to do such a thing so openly. The heirs of the 5 great holy lands would certainly not let this matter go. At that time, the first and second heirs would not be able to sit still as this concerned the honor of their sections. At least among the heirs of the 8 pavilion masters of the Skyward Pavilion, Sima Chongfeng, the Northern Pavilion Master, was only ranked 4th. There were still the Eastern, southern, and western pavilion masters above him. Both sides were not fighting to the death. Lu Ping also had some misgivings about the heirs of the holy lands of the Skyward Pavilion. Although he had guessed that the Northern Pavilion Master, who had stopped him halfway, might have been tempted to come here, he still fought with this person. Neither of them used any magic treasures or spiritual treasures. They only used various magical powers and spells to fight. Lu Ping did not mind this kind of battle of magical powers, especially against the direct disciples of the Holy Lands. This was beneficial to the growth of Lu Ping's strength. After advancing to the mid-Dharma stage, Lu Ping had not fully adapted to the effects of the increase in his strength. Previously, when he was fighting Nanyu Laozu in the South Sea, he could only use 70 to 80% of his strength. Therefore, only by training with opponents of similar strength could he be able to quickly use his own strength and control it. The only worry was that, just like what Tian Tian had said, the battle would eventually become a matter of the major sects defending their honor. At that time, there would be conflict, and Lu Ping would become the target of public criticism. That would be self-defeating. Oh yes, Lu Ping suddenly thought of something and asked, how did the news of the Northern Alliance's treasure ship spread? According to the voyage, the strange phenomenon on the treasure ship should still be at sea. Could it be that someone happened to see it? Lu Tianyuan said, the news we received came from the East Sea. It is said that the Taoist partner of a disciple of Hanya Laozu was originally a disciple of Gue Yi Laozu. The disciple was grateful for the love between the two of them, so he brought her on the treasure ship. Unexpectedly, this Taoist partner resented Hanya Laozu's betrayal of the Northern Alliance, so after discovering the Taoist partner, she escaped when the treasure ship entered the estuary of the Qingming River. Then, she sneaked into the long-distance teleportation array of the Skyward Pavilion and returned to the East Sea. She spread the news of the treasure ship having the Taoist partner. After that, she was quickly controlled by the cultivators of the Crystal Palace. However, the news of the Taoist partner did spread more and more. After Uncle Tianfeng received the news, he reported it to the sect, and the head sent the two of us here to investigate. Do you know what the Taoist partner is? According to the female cultivator who escaped, it was a handkerchief with Zhao Doran's handwriting on it. Zhao Doran's handwriting? Lu Ping exclaimed. At that moment, Lu Ping, who had decided to watch the show after seeing the situation become stranger, could no longer hold back his desire to take it for himself. It was fine if it was the other heaven-splitting Taoist's handwriting, but it just had to be Zhao Doran's handwriting. Why was the Purple Sun Palace known as the #1 sword sect in the world? The fundamental reason was that one of the founders of the Purple Sun Palace, Laozu, Purple Sword Laozu, had once been Zhao Doran's concubine for a period of time when Zhao Doran was traveling the world preaching Taoism. Being Zhao Doran's concubine was nothing embarrassing. Moreover, Purple Sword Laozu seemed to be rather doted on by Zhao Doran. When she left Zhao Doran, she had even asked for a sword technique personally written by Zhao Doran, as well as a few flying swords that Zhao Doran had used in passing. Afterwards, Purple Sword Laozu founded the Purple Sun Palace with a few like-minded people. The flying swords naturally became the legacy treasures of the Purple Sun Palace, while the sword technique personally written by Zhao Doran became the foundation for the Purple Sun Palace to rise up. Chapter 1156. Of course, the important part of the Ziyang Palace's inherited sword technique was not the sword technique itself. In fact, this sword technique was just a set of basic sword techniques left behind by Zhao Doran. It was only suitable for core forging cultivators to consolidate their cultivation. What was truly valuable was Zhao Doran's handwriting. This sword technique itself only had a few hundred words, but almost every word Zhao Doran wrote contained a set of sword techniques and a sword intent. These sword techniques were either high or low, strong or weak, hidden or visible. The Ziyang Palace had not studied all the words on this sword technique for tens of thousands of years. Every time they thought that the things contained in the words of this sword technique had been excavated, there would always be one or two geniuses who inadvertently comprehended this sword technique. The reason why the Ziyang Palace was known as the #1 sword sect in the world was because of the words of this sword technique. This sword technique was also regarded as an inherited treasure by the Xiang Palace. It was even more precious than the flying swords that Zhao Daoren had once used. Moreover, something similar had happened. That was the heaven-splitting sword saint, Xiao Baiyu. In the past, Xiao Baiyu found the broken flying sword that Zhao Daoren had broken when he opened up the cultivation world of the East Sea in a mystic realm. At that time, there was a stone tablet engraved at the place where the broken sword was buried. There were 8 words written on it, Heaven-Splitting Sword Saint. After that, Xiao Baiyu integrated the broken sword back into his natal flying sword. He then carried the stone tablet engraved with these 8 words back to the heavenly sword sect. After that, he faced the wall in front of the stone tablet and cultivated in seclusion for decades. When he appeared in the cultivation world again, Xiao Baiyu already had 2 sets of supreme sword techniques that were completely different from Skyrin's inheritance, as well as several sets of powerful and sharp sword techniques. With the heaven-splitting sword, he dominated the world. He defeated the crystal, forced the Kuan fish, killed the pure yang, traveled the ice field, and broke into the endless mountain. He had never tasted defeat and was called Heaven-Splitting Sword Saint by the cultivation world. Lu Ping struggled out of the shocking news written by Zhao Daoren with great difficulty. After calming down, Lu Ping soon found the doubts in it. He asked curiously, "The Northern Alliance has disappeared. Why did the female cultivator come back to East Sea to spread the news?" This is also the reason why Uncle Master only sent the 2 of us to investigate after receiving the news. If the female cultivator of the Northern Alliance really wanted to take revenge on Hanya Laozu and the others for betraying the Northern Alliance, what she should have done was to spread the news in Middle Mainland. There are many sects in the cultivation world of Middle Mainland, and it is far more prosperous than overseas. Even East Sea is not comparable to it. The sects in Middle Mainland should really covet the heaven-splitting relic. In any case, the female cultivator should not have gone back to East Sea to spread the news. However, Lu Ping thought of a sect and a cultivator in Zhao Daoren's handwritten letter. He turned around and asked, "Senior brothers, what happened to the female cultivator after she spread the news?" Tian Tian and Tian Yuan looked at each other and said, "After that, she was controlled by the people of the Crystal Palace. Rumor has it that the Crystal Palace took a fancy to the heaven-splitting relic, so they captured the only person who knew about it. This is in line with the domineering style of the Crystal Palace." No. Lu Ping seemed to have grasped something in his mind. He said, "When I went down the Qingming River earlier, I seem to have found many cultivators from the Middle Mainland. They seem to have come for the treasure ship. Why? Did the news come from overseas?" Tian Tian and Lu Tianyuan also showed confusion in their eyes. Lu Tianyuan thought for a while and said, "This is also what puzzled us. When senior brother Tian Tian and I came to the South Middle Mainland, there was no movement about the treasure ship in the Middle Mainland's cultivation world. However, in the past few days, there was a sudden uproar. It seemed that the entire cultivation world suddenly knew about it. Cultivators from all over the world came to the South Middle Mainland in an attempt to intercept the treasure ship of the Northern Alliance on the Qingming River." Intercept the treasure ship? Lu Ping was speechless. Then, he said with some amusement, "They have to have the ability to do so. Even the pure Yang Laozu would have to avoid a treasure ship with a grand adept. How could they intercept it? These Middle Mainland cultivators are used to being arrogant. They don't know the true power of the treasure ship." Tiantan also laughed and said, "Indeed. Previously, there were many impatient cultivators who tried to intercept the treasure ship. There were many Dharma adepts among them. They clearly thought that the treasure ship was just a turtle shell that the overseas sects used to pass through the stormy ocean. Unexpectedly, they all returned in failure. It was only after they lost a few Dharma adepts that they stopped and followed the treasure ship." Lu Ping thought of the day when he met the treasure ship on the Qingming River. There were dozens of divine senses hidden in the void that were probing him unscrupulously. He could not help but say, "Yes, there are indeed many people." Previously, there were only overseas cultivators. It was not until there were more and more people that the direct descendants of the 5 Holy Lands were recently sent out. I think they are here to expel these people. Of course, this includes us. Although Lu Ping said so, images flashed in his mind one after another. The heaven-opening relic, the treasure ship, the female cultivator, the news, the crystal palace, Mara's army, Magic Cloud City, the five elements peacock, the leak of the secret, the gathering, the expulsion. Lu Ping seemed to want to connect all of these with one line, but he always felt that it was contradictory. It was not until Lu Ping thought of Xiao Baiyu, because of Zhao Doran's handwritten letter, that he inexplicably thought that there might be another force that had already intervened. This might not be a plot, but a plot within a plot. It was a battle that the two sides had already begun to play with each other to break the stalemate. Lu Ping said in a low voice, "The treasure ship is not far from Magic Cloud City. A good show is about to begin. It seems that we can't miss it." Tian Tian was a little reluctant and said, "Just to watch?" Lu Ping also said helplessly, "If there is no accident, we can only watch. But even if there is an accident, I'm afraid we can only run for our lives." The three of them flew all the way, but with Lu Ping's previous speculation and the obstruction of the cultivators of Nine Mysteries Tower and Skyward Pavilion, the three of them did not travel along the Qingming River. Instead, they flew in the general direction of the Qingming River after they were dozens of miles away from the river. However, after only a moment, Lu Ping slowed down and then helplessly shouted to the void not far away, "Brother Su, it's really a coincidence to meet you here. Could it be that you also want to fight with me?" "Haha, sure enough, I can't hide from you, Brother Lu." Su Jin tore apart the concealment in front of him and walked out from the void, and then he said, "Those two bastards from Nine Mysteries Tower suffered a loss at Brother Lu's hands. After they returned, they've been lobbying everywhere as if they're afraid that others don't know their intentions. I'm naturally aware of Brother Lu's strength, but I still have to come and persuade you." Lu Ping cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I'll remember Brother Su's good intentions. However, I'm afraid that the matter of the treasure ship is not something we can participate in. I only rushed over to watch the show from afar." Su Jin's expression turned solemn, and he said, "Looks like Brother Lu has already guessed something. In this way, I can rest assured." "I have indeed guessed something," Lu Ping smiled and said, "but Brother Su, it's better to be careful. With such a large force, the person you're dealing with is naturally difficult to deal with. They naturally won't allow themselves to be captured without a fight, and they'll definitely counterattack. At that time, Brother Su will probably be a dispensable figure who plays a supporting role. Brother Su, you should hide in the chaos if you can." Su Jin didn't take it seriously and said, "Relying on these mobs who rushed here after hearing the news? If they are all like Brother Lu, then we will naturally have a headache. But now, I still have to thank Brother Lu for reminding me. It's a mission. If it's others, I don't care. But if it's really that person, Lu Ping had already hinted, but Su Jin obviously didn't take it seriously and even showed an eagerness to try. Lu Ping naturally knew the reason, but he couldn't say anything more. Although Lu Ping had guessed something, the two sides of the secret game were obviously not people that Lu Ping could provoke. So, all Lu Ping could do was to stay silent and hide as far away as possible to wait for the result of the two sides. Free Cloud's Laozu arranged by Yun Laozu, who was seriously injured by the formation's backlash, to be in the Dao Soldier formation, and then led the surviving cultivators of Magic Cloud City to break out of the encirclement. The Magic Cloud City had been breached. At the moment when Free Cloud's Laozu was hesitating, the island-protecting formation disk in which Bai Yun Laozu was stationed began to backfire because of the sudden sneak attack. Then, the fierce attack of Azura outside the city broke the city-protecting formation in one fell swoop, and at the same time, Bai Yun Laozu was even more seriously injured by the formation's backlash. Mara's army instantly rushed in, and countless cultivators of Magic Cloud City were instantly buried in the torrent of Mara's army. Protect Bai Yun Laozu. Free Cloud's Laozu didn't hesitate at this moment. As long as the two of them were great practitioners, they might be able to rebuild Magic Cloud City. Free Cloud's Laozu didn't even care about the disciples around him who were calling for help. He activated the only second tribulation spirit treasure of Magic Cloud City and broke out of Mara's encirclement. In the secret chamber of the City Lord's mansion, he found Bai Yun Laozu, who was still fighting with the sneak attacker despite being an arrow at the end of its flight. Compared with Mara, who had breached the city, Xian Yun Laozu wanted to kill the culprit who had sneaked into Magic Cloud City and attacked the cultivators of Magic Cloud City from behind, which eventually led to the fall of Magic Cloud City. However, the sneak attacker was extremely vigilant. He had been covered by a cloud of colorful mist. At the moment when he found that something was wrong, he threw out a teleportation talisman, turned into a beam of rainbow light, and disappeared. Rainbow Transformation Secret Technique, the secret technique of Lingyun Valley. At this time, Free Cloud's Laozu was like a wounded beast, gnashing his teeth and spitting out these words, Senior brother. At the moment when Free Cloud's Laozu appeared, Bai Yun Laozu finally let out a breath of spirit qi. He suddenly became very dispirited, but his mind was not affected. When he saw Free Cloud's Laozu's blood-red eyes, he hurriedly said with difficulty, "It's just a talisman, it's nothing." After all, he was a monster who had lived for thousands of years. Xian Yun Laozu, who had calmed down in an instant, carried her on his back and said, "Magic Cloud City, it's over. We have to survive, recruit disciples, rebuild Magic Cloud City, and take revenge." Hundreds of miles south of Magic Cloud City, a red light flashed across. A thin man with piercing eyes flashed out of the red light and came to the side of a well-dressed middle-aged man. Looking at Mara's army covering the huge Magic Cloud City in one fell swoop, a middle-aged practitioner said, "Well done, Magic Cloud City, it's over. The show has just begun." Even though the two of them had the special thunderbolt magic to restrain Mara, and they were the best among the practitioners of the same level, they were still beaten to a pulp by several Mara. Fortunately, Xian Yun Laozu had once again gathered two mid-Dharma elders of Magic Cloud City. One of them was Mu Yun Laozu, who had been seriously injured. He also found two early Dharma second-generation practitioners, which increased the strength of the surviving practitioners of Magic Cloud City. However, the speed at which Mara's army gathered had increased, and their attacks on the crowd were becoming more and more intense. At this moment, Yuan Jinglei shouted again, "Are you done yet? If this goes on, none of you will survive." Xian Yun Laozu also knew that he could not wait any longer. Once the Azura realized what was happening here and rushed over, only one of them would be able to hold him back. Without the leadership of a great practitioner like him, out of the 200 practitioners who had just gathered here, only 20 would be able to escape. The sounds of fighting, shouting, and screaming could still be heard in Magic Cloud City. Xian Yun Laozu gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go." Mu Yun Laozu struggled to support his seriously injured body and said, "Brother, there are still disciples alive. There are still disciples alive." Xian Yun Laozu's face had already turned blood red. He suddenly widened his eyes and glared at Mu Yun Laozu, saying, "Let's go." Mu Yun Laozu still wanted to say something, but he felt someone beside him pulling his clothes. When he turned to look, he saw that it was Bai Yun Laozu, who had also been seriously injured by the formation's backlash. Seeing that Mu Yun Laozu had turned around, Bai Yun Laozu shook his head silently. Mu Yun Laozu looked at the disciples of Magic Cloud City around him, but he saw that all of them had their heads lowered, not daring to look at Mu Yun Laozu in the eyes. Mu Yun Laozu immediately felt as if someone had pulled something out of his heart. His body, which had been forcefully supporting itself, suddenly became weak, and he no longer had any spirit. The Yuan brothers fought and retreated at the same time, converging with the surviving cultivators of Magic Cloud City. Yuan said in a deep voice, "Senior Xian Yun, where are we going to break out of the encirclement?" Xian Yun Laozu gritted his teeth and looked at the remaining 200 or so cultivators of Magic Cloud City behind him. He said in a deep voice, "Head northwest towards the Lingyun Valley." A small commotion broke out among the surviving cultivators of Magic Cloud City behind him, but it soon quieted down. Only Mu Yun Laozu's expression became increasingly gloomy. He lowered his head, and no one knew what he was thinking. When the Yuan brothers heard that Xian Yun Laozu was actually going northwest, their expressions changed immediately. Yuan Jinglei wanted to say something, but he was stopped by a look from Yuan Ke. The Dao soldier formation, made up of more than 200 people, advanced in the northwest direction. Xian Yun Laozu took the lead, and on both sides were the mid-Dharma adepts of Magic Cloud City, Song Yun Laozu and Yuan brothers. The remaining 2 early Dharma adepts of Magic Cloud City led a few core forging adepts and stayed at the back of the Dao soldier formation. On the other side, Mara launched a sneak attack from the back. After advancing for a few miles, they had already reached the edge of Magic Cloud City. Along the way, many Magic Cloud City cultivators, who were either trapped or hidden, joined in. However, from time to time, cultivators in the Dao soldier formation would fall under the siege of Mara, so the number of cultivators remained roughly the same. However, just as they were about to make their way out of Magic Cloud City, a furious roar suddenly rang out before them. The cultivators from Magic Cloud City fell into a state of panic. Even Patriarch Idlecloud was at a loss for what to do. An Azura had appeared in the direction where the Magic Cloud City cultivators were heading. Judging from the roar, the Azura seemed to have noticed what was happening here and was heading their way. At that moment, Mara's army behind the Dao soldier formation had already surged forward. The Magic Cloud City cultivators had nowhere to retreat to. Just as everyone was in despair, a deafening roar suddenly came from the south. It seemed as though a large group of cultivators had charged into Mara's army from behind. Xian Yun Laozu's eyes lit up. It was as though he had found a life-saving straw. He made a prompt decision and said, "Head south." The Dao soldier formation quickly turned south. However, the Azura seemed to have sensed something and immediately sped up. Soon, it rushed out from Mara's army and rushed towards the Dao soldier formation. Xian Yun Laozu leaped up, wanting to block the Azura. However, 2 Jade Azuras suddenly rushed out from Mara's army and blocked Xian Yun Laozu. The Azura then rushed over and hit Xian Yun Laozu, sending him flying. Seeing that the Dao soldier formation was like a piece of paper in front of Azura, and the cultivators of Magic Cloud City were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, Free Cloud Old Ancestor, who was flying horizontally in midair, suddenly saw a figure flitting past him. When Xian Yun Laozu looked over, his eyes widened. He shouted, "Junior brother Mu Yun, come back." The person who had rushed forward was Mu Yun Laozu, who had been seriously injured. His rush was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. He could not withstand the power of the Azura's finger. However, Mu Yun Laozu had come forward to seek death. Bang! Mu Yun Laozu's body exploded. He used his body's cultivation as a guide, and the huge spiritual power storm created by his self-destruction formed a powerful shockwave. The 2 Jade Azuras were caught off guard. One died, and the other was seriously injured. The Azura let out a deafening scream, and the other Mara's army suffered heavy casualties. Xian Yun Laozu tried his best to stop the trembling in his throat. He said in a sad voice, "Go south. Go south." Due to the influence of Mu Yun Laozu's self-destruction, the people of Magic Cloud City were suddenly united against a common enemy. They erupted with a huge amount of fighting power. The Mara's army that was coming toward them was instantly defeated. The Azura might have been injured by Mu Yun Laozu's self-destruction, but he did not chase after them. Yuan and Yuan were relieved. The Magic Cloud City cultivators quickly met up with the cultivators who were attacking Mara's army in the south. Demon cultivators. Peacock royalty? Xian Yun Laozu was stunned, while the Yuan and Yuan had a strange look on their faces. "Hey guys, look who this is. Isn't this old man Xian Yun of Magic Cloud City? Why does he look like a stray dog? It seems that your Magic Cloud City has been destroyed. Doesn't that mean that there will be a hole in your so-called defense line?" The strange cry rang out from the demon cultivators who were besieging Mo Luo, followed by a burst of strange laughter. All the demon cultivators chimed in one after another. "There's indeed another hole, and it's so big and so deep. You can't fill it up now, can you?" Xian Yun Laozu snorted coldly. He led the hundreds of surviving disciples behind him and said, "Let's go." However, before the Magic Cloud City cultivators could leave, the strange voice came again. It said, "What? Are you going to leave now? Us attacking the Devil Luo army here can more or less be considered as supporting your escape. But you guys are good. You jumped out of the encirclement and turned around to leave without saying a word. These humans are really ungrateful. Xian Yun Laozu suddenly turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. He shouted, Yang Jieshi, what do you want? Nothing. A middle-aged cultivator dressed in luxurious robes parted the crowd and stood in front of the free cloud ancestor. He was also a late Dharma cultivator, and from the looks of it, the free cloud ancestor was rather familiar with him. Yang Jieshi said, we are still killing Mara's army here. Your magic cloud city still has some combat power. Do you want us to avenge your magic cloud city? Yang Jieshi continued, it seems that you human cultivators have always been like this. You say good things, but when it comes to actual action, you can't do anything. He ordered Sangyan Laozu to lead the injured among the remaining 100 or so practitioners to the Lingyun Valley, but there were still more than a dozen people who were willing to stay. Although Xian Yun Laozu knew that Yang Jieshi was provoking them, the Magic Cloud sect should not retreat. At this time, Lu Ping and the other two had already run around the original road and reached the boundary between the middle and lower reaches of the Qingming River. It was also the place closest to the Magic Cloud City. Chapter 1158. The Qingming River surged from the north to the south and suddenly made a big turn here, pouring down to the southeast and into the sea. A few hundred miles away from this turn was Magic Cloud City, which was connected to the Qingming River by a canal. Lu Ping, Lu Tianyuan, and Lu Tianyuan took a detour and finally didn't encounter any more disciples from the 5 sacred grounds. Puzzled, Lu Tianyuan asked, Junior Martial Brother, are you sure what will happen next will happen here? Lu Ping said with certainty, even if it doesn't happen here, it will definitely pass by here. Let's just wait and see. 3 days later, the Northern Alliance's ship finally pierced through the morning mist. The huge ship was like a giant beast from ancient times, cutting through the surging Qingming River and appearing in the sight of Lu Ping and the others. In fact, Lu Ping saw the ship before the other two because not only did Lu Ping's eyes have the 3 pure eyes, but after his Dharma form went through the first lightning tribulation and formed the eagle eyes, Lu Ping's vision was even further. The 3 of them were on a low hill 10 miles away from the turn of the Qingming River. Originally, Tian Tian and Tian Yuan thought that this place was a little too far from the Qingming River, but Lu Ping said that it was better to be close than far. The huge ship was still mighty and majestic, but the many marks on the ship showed that the Northern Alliance's journey was not smooth sailing. When the ship got closer, the scene on the ship became even clearer. There were obvious cracks on the ship's hull, and dense runes could be seen. Obviously, the ship's protective array had been damaged a lot. The 3 of them hid themselves on the hill, but they did not hide their auras. As the treasured ship got closer, the 3 of them could clearly sense that more and more cultivators who followed the treasured ship had arrived. They hid themselves as well. Many of them also took notice of the hill that the 3 of them were on. However, when they sensed the auras of the 3 of them, they avoided them. At this moment, Lu Ping sighed softly and said in a low voice, Iron Lock River Crossing Technique. They even used this kind of unorthodox magical power. Tian Tian had obviously heard of this magical power and said in surprise, Iron Lock River Crossing Technique? Who used it? Can it stop the ship? As soon as Tian Tian finished speaking, the treasured ship that was moving against the current suddenly slowed down. The huge ship continued to move forward with great inertia, but it was blocked by a force hidden in the water. A clear wave that crossed the surface of the Qingming River stretched forward with the treasured ship as the center, forming a huge triangle. Creak, creak, creak. A teeth-aching sound came from the body of the treasure ship, followed by a series of crisp, cracking sounds. Originally, they were slightly hesitant to fly back, but now they were determined and even faster. It was a ray of sword light. At the moment of sunrise, it stood out from the light of heaven and earth that shone on all things. In an instant, it even overshadowed the golden crow in this area. The heavens and the earth lost color, and the world was silent. In the universe, only the power of this sword could cover the heavens and the earth, and the weather changed. The faint whistling sound in the sky was the sound of this shocking sword breaking the sound barrier and rushing over to meet up with it. But then, it was completely drowned out by the earth-shaking scene here. A sword came from the east. It was majestic and large, and it slashed directly toward the treasured boat. The blazing light caused the eyes of all the cultivators on both sides of the azure netherworld river to be completely bright. Among them, only the cold voice that came from the treasured boat resounded, and it was a furious roar filled with terror. Lu Ping, who was flying back, suddenly turned green and red, and two green and red rays shot out 2 feet long. For a moment, even the shocking sword light that changed the color of heaven and earth couldn't cover Lu Ping's sight. The Qingming River, which was dozens of miles long, suddenly sank, forming a huge ditch that was 30 feet wide and more than 100 feet deep. The treasure ship suddenly sank for 100 feet, and it seemed that it would be swallowed by the river water on both sides at any time. However, the reason why the treasure ship was called a treasure ship was that it was the foundation of several generations of cultivators, and it could be said to be one of the treasures with the highest achievements in the cultivation world. How could it be destroyed by a single blow? Even this shocking sword light couldn't do it. With the loud shout just now, a huge shield suddenly lit up on the treasure ship, and then it condensed into a huge palm above the shield, grabbing at the sword light that came from the sky. Poochie! The palm was immediately cut off, and the sword light continued to slash down. Boom! The array formation of the treasure ship suddenly dimmed, and the talismans on the body of the ship exploded. 2/3 of the talismans on the body of the ship suddenly exploded, and the entire body of the treasure ship sank more than 3 feet into the river again. But in the end, the treasured ship was still able to withstand this heaven-shaking attack. However, although the sword light that covered the sky was blocked, it immediately shattered, and the sharp force still invaded the body of the ship. Whoosh! The full sail of the treasure ship immediately fell down, and the treasure ship that was originally speeding slowly slowed down on the surface of the river until it completely lost the power to move forward. In the blink of an eye, the blazing light that covered the sky suddenly dissipated, and the river water that was more than 10 feet deep that was cut by the sword light surged back. The treasure ship that was originally in the ditch suddenly jumped up, and the huge body of the ship was now like a toy on the surface of the river. There was a dead silence on both sides of the river, as if they had been stunned by the shocking attack just now. Then, a few corpses suddenly appeared in the river, obviously the cultivators who had been hiding in the Qingming River before. Then, from the forest on both sides of the river, like a swarm of frightened birds, dozens of figures flew out into the distance. Most of these cultivators were in the Dharma plane, but at this moment, they were all in a mess. Obviously, although the sword light that covered the sky did not hurt them, it made them suffer a lot. Lu Ping and the other two retreated all the way, but in the end, they were not affected by this shocking sword light. However, Tian Tian and Lu Tianyuan still looked shocked. Lu Tianyuan's eyes widened, and he exclaimed, "What a powerful sword light! What kind of person could perform such a shocking sword light?" Lu Ping raised his head and looked toward the gradually rising sun in the east, and suddenly said, "It's coming." The two followed Lu Ping's gaze, and in their eyes, there was still a glaring sunlight, but they could not see anything clearly. At this moment, the sky full of sunlight suddenly condensed, and another sword light that covered the sky was formed, slashing toward the treasure ship on the Qingming River from afar. Just as the sword light was formed and the sky full of sunlight was retracted, Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian finally faintly saw a figure walking toward them in the sunlight. It really is him. Who? Sky-splitting sword Saint Xiao Baiyu. Hiss, it's him. No wonder. 2/3 of the northern ship's protective barrier had been destroyed by the talismans on its hull. The barrier's power had been reduced to less than 1/10 of its original state. There was no way it would be able to withstand the sword that had dimmed the light of the world. The cold sound of the sword whistling sounded again, and an equally brilliant sword light came from the north bank of the Qingming River. Halfway through, it collided with the light in front of it, and the brilliant sword light immediately shattered. However, although the light in front of it had dimmed a lot, it still continued forward. "Xiao Baiyu, that's enough." An angry roar came from the south bank, and the rolling sound waves condensed in midair, actually condensing into a crystal shield in midair. The shield shattered when the sword light came down, but at the same time, the shattered space also destroyed the sky full of sword chi. Chapter 1159. Xiao Baiyu, that's enough. Amidst his furious roar, the surging sound waves actually condensed into a spatial shield in midair, and it blocked the sword light that had been worn down by the previous sword light. Haha! A light laugh resounded through the heavens and the earth. Wang Xianqing, you're still so impatient. If it wasn't for that, how could the old man have killed LV Taiching with a single strike? Humph! A muffled groan resounded through the heavens and the earth, causing Lu Tianyuan and Wang Xuanqing's blood to surge, and they looked at each other in shock. Only Lu Ping's expression remained unchanged, and his eyes flickered with a green light as he stared at the distant river. Xiao Baiyu, today is the day you die. Tisk tsk, Wang Xianqing, you're still so arrogant. LV Taiching was already dead when you said those words last time, so why didn't you restrain yourself at all? Who will it be this time? Just you and this Bailey Changtian from the Skyward Pavilion? Haha, fellow Taoist Xiao, I didn't expect that you would actually recognize me. It's an honor to meet you. Fellow Taoist Bailey's spatial ability is quite good, but it's only good. This Wang Xianqing must have been kicked in the head by a donkey. Could it be that fellow Taoist Bailey doesn't know? Fellow Taoist Xiao is a heavenly genius. Fellow Taoist Wang and fellow Taoist Bailey might not be able to do anything to you, but what if I join in? A sonorous voice resounded from the west. When Lu Ping and the others looked towards the west, they saw a sky full of rainbow lights, but they couldn't clearly see the figures within. The Lingyun Valley's unfettered one has also arrived, so I can fight the three of you to my heart's content. Come, this blood-boiling feeling seems to have disappeared for a long time, and I'm even a little impatient. An earth-shaking sword cry resounded, as if it was catering to its master's current state of mind. Don't be anxious. Another unfamiliar voice came from the left side of Xiao Baiyu. Fellow Taoist Zhao's heaven-shattering sword is unparalleled in the world. I believe it won't be a problem for the old man to learn from you. Xiao Baiyu's expression did not change, as if he had already expected this. He smiled and said, Aha! I didn't expect Konoha from Wuxing School to be here as well. For pure young immortals from the 5 sacred lands have come. If the 9 mystical tower doesn't have anything to say, wouldn't it be disappointing? Haha, fellow Xiao is truly unparalleled in the world. Today, you've entered our 5-man game, yet you're still so carefree. It truly makes us feel ashamed. However, today, we have no choice but to fight you with numbers and experience fellow Zhao's peerless sword technique. Sure enough, just as Xiao Baiyu pointed out the 9 mystical tower, a voice came from the right side behind him. It was a woman. Xiao Baiyu was slightly surprised and said, 8th Sister Zhu has also passed the 3rd lightning tribulation. This is a cause for celebration. Initially, I thought it would be boring to face these old fellows. I didn't expect 8th Sister Zhu to be the first among the 2nd-generation disciples to pass the lightning tribulation. However, I wonder how many 2nd-generation cultivators from the other sacred lands are like 8th Sister Zhu. Those who were defeated by my sword back then but were still unconvinced, have they ever achieved as much as 8th Sister Zhu? 8th Sister Zhu of the 9 mystical tower was obviously the only 2nd-generation disciple among the pure young Laozu from each of the 5 sacred lands. In fact, Xiao Baiyu was also a 2nd-generation cultivator. Moreover, from Xiao Baiyu's words, it could be seen that the outstanding 2nd-generation cultivators of the 5 sacred lands had also reached the critical stage of advancing to the pure young realm. However, it seemed that only 8th Sister Zhu of the 9 mystical tower had taken this step first. How could the other 4 pure young Laozu not hear the sarcasm in Xiao Baiyu's words? For a moment, they could not help but feel a little embarrassed. After all, the 5 sacred lands still cared about their reputation. This time, the 5 sacred lands had joined forces to conspire against Xiao Baiyu. After this, it would definitely cause a huge storm in the cultivation world. If there were really 2nd-generation cultivators among the sects who had achieved the pure young realm, they would definitely push their 2nd-generation disciples to deal with Xiao Baiyu, just like the 9 mystical tower did. Instead of pushing several first-generation pure young Lao Tzu to fight with numbers and bully the weak at the same time. Eighth Sister Zhu giggled and said, "Your existence can no longer be measured by common sense. The cultivation world has always been balanced, but you just happen to have the strength to break the balance. With this strength, you can slowly advance to the true soul level." Which of the Lao Tzu who had achieved the true soul level in the past wasn't like that? When that time comes, who can do anything to you? But you just happen to be the one who breaks the norm now. Who knows? The 6 sacred lands might even throw away their reputation to erase your existence. Since you already have the reputation of bullying the weak with numbers, why should you care about being bullied by the strong? These words were clearly directed at Xiao Baiyu, but in fact, they were directed at the other pure young Lao Tzu. Although these pure young Lao Tzu stood at the top of the cultivation world, how could they not be burdened by fame? Instead, they were not as thorough as a woman like Eighth Sister Zhu. Xiao Baiyu smiled bitterly and said, "Eighth Sister Zhu is still a woman who is not inferior to men. It seems that you still bear a grudge against me." It would have been fine if Eighth Sister Zhu had not heard this, but when she heard Xiao Baiyu's words, she immediately frowned and scolded. "If you had promised me back then, I would have been willing to betray the 9 mystical tower for you. Today, I would have risked my life to deal with the 6 sacred lands. If I had blinked, I would not be a woman. But since you have made your choice, we are just passers-by. Today, we each serve a different master, so it is a fight to the death. There is no second choice." This Eighth Sister Zhu was obviously a master who had no taboos. In front of the other pure young Lao-Tzu, she only cared about her own matters and even said words like, betraying the 9 mystical tower. This kind of boldness caused the other Lao-Tzu to either be stunned or shake their heads. Purple Sun Palace's pure young Lao-Tzu, Wang Xinqing, shouted, "What nonsense are you talking about? It was not easy to set up this situation today. This person has always been crafty, so he might have a countermeasure. We should end this quickly, lest there are changes." Unexpectedly, just as Wang Xinqing finished speaking, Xiao Baiyu had already slashed at Wang Xinqing with his sword, but he smiled and said, "You know me best, fellow Daoist Xinqing. No wonder you cooperated with me to kill Lu Taiqing back then. Otherwise, how could Purple Sun Palace have your illustrious status today?" Wang Xinqing was furious and said, "Nonsense. A dignified pure young cultivator actually dares to say such childish provocative words." Ugh. Wang Xinqing wanted to use the flying sword in his hand to parry, but unexpectedly, it was sent flying by Xiao Baiyu's sword. The blood in his body shook, and he retreated dozens of feet in midair. He had suffered a loss right from the start. Originally, even if Xiao Baiyu's strength was far superior to those of the same level, it should not have been enough to make Wang Xinqing suffer such a loss right from the start. However, Xiao Baiyu had already begun to gather strength during his conversation with the others. After he attacked with his full strength, Wang Xinqing was unable to react in time and immediately suffered a loss. Even so, the other pure young Lao-Tzu was secretly shocked. No matter how careless Wang Xinqing was, he was still a true pure young cultivator after all. There was no reason for him to be forced back by Xiao Baiyu in one blow. He thought to himself that it was no wonder this person could kill pure young cultivators when he had just advanced to the late Dharma stage. Although he had used a trick at the time, no pure young cultivator in the cultivation world would dare to underestimate him again. Now that he had advanced to the pure young stage, his strength was probably even stronger. This person was already a great threat if they did not get rid of him today. If they did not kill him today, there would be few who could withstand his revenge in the future. Xiao Baiyu laughed loudly. "Wang Xinqing, you are still so careless. You are a pure young Lao-Tzu, and you have cultivated for thousands of years. Did you live like a dog?" Eighth Sister Zhu scolded. "You talk too much. Eat my fork first." Before the flying fork could reach Xiao Baiyu, it had already turned into 36. This kind of transformation was different from Lu Ping's sword qi edge, which condensed the qi of heaven and earth with his inner yuan. Instead, it was a kind of real magical power. Each flying fork was a real existence. The only difference was that when a flying fork was originally a second tribulation spiritual treasure, When it turned into 6 flying forks, each flying fork became a first tribulation spiritual treasure. When it turned into 36 flying forks, each of them only had the quality of a 9 Da spirit nurturing treasure. However, they could form a flying fork formation in midair, and its power was even above that of a second tribulation spiritual treasure. After this flying fork formation was displayed, it was accompanied by a supreme magical power of the 9 mystical tower. Its power was unparalleled, and it directly fell on Xiao Baiyu. Eighth Sister Zhu knew that Xiao Baiyu's battle strength was unparalleled among cultivators of the same level. Only the formation could restrain him. Although it was still unable to trap and kill him, it could give the others an opportunity to besiege him. Sure enough, after Xiao Baiyu's heaven-breaking sword broke through the Lingyun Valley unfettered 1-7 rainbow kill, and then turned to slash Mui Laozu's boundless falling wood into falling leaves to roots, she saw the flying fork formation falling from the sky. Xiao Baiyu immediately let out a strange cry and flicked his fingers at the heaven-breaking sword. With each flick of his finger, a sword shadow would be drawn out from the heaven-breaking sword. With 36 flicks of his fingers, 36 sword shadows soared into the sky. Each sword shadow accurately targeted a flying fork falling from the sky. No matter how Eighth Sister Zhu's flying fork formation changed in mid-air, it could not escape the pursuit of the sword shadows. Clang, 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 clang. A series of explosions resounded through the sky. Each sword shadow would be annihilated after hitting a flying fork, but the flying fork remained undamaged. However, the originally orderly flying fork formation was in a mess after being hit by the sword shadows. Even Eighth Sister Zhu's pure yang power could not reorganize the formation in a short period of time. One sword to break all techniques. This was one sword to break all techniques. Xiao Baiyu had a sword in hand. No matter how many changes there were, I'll break it with one sword. Wang Xuanqing's face was livid, but he did not say a word. The flying sword in his hand was launched again. Every time it trembled in the air, it turned into a crescent moon in the sky. 24 crescent moons were formed and turned into the new moon sword formation, one of the 6 supreme swordsmanship of Purple Sun Palace. He was originally the strongest among the 5 people who besieged Xiao Baiyu. According to the previous plan, he would temporarily entangle Xiao Baiyu at the beginning, and then the other 4 people would leisurely lay a trap and kill him in one fell swoop. Unexpectedly, Xiao Baiyu repelled him with all his strength as soon as he came up, so that he was far away from the battle group. Xiao Baiyu took the opportunity to fight with the other people, so he could not intervene for a while. Chapter 1160. Xiao Baiyu's attack instantly forced Wang Xinqing to retreat, broke the 7 rainbow kill, blocked the endless falling wood, and disrupted the flying fork formation. However, in the end, it was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Skyward Pavilion's Bailey Changtian took this opportunity to attack. The space around Xiao Baiyu suddenly began to condense, as if it wanted to freeze him within. Of course, this could not affect Xiao Baiyu. At the moment when the surrounding space began to freeze, the rising sun suddenly shone brightly, and the sunlight that illuminated the earth instantly turned into light blades and sharp swords that submerged into the surrounding frozen space. The space that had just frozen immediately shattered, and Xiao Baiyu easily escaped. Bailey Changtian's attack did not even cause him the slightest bit of trouble. However, Bailey Changtian did not actually expect his attack to affect Bailey Changtian. All he wanted was to fight for an opportunity for Wang Xinqing to intervene. The new moon sword formation suddenly fell, like a crescent moon falling to the ground. Even the rising sun seemed to be overshadowed by the moonlight. It wanted to completely strangle Xiao Baiyu. However, the dim sun was not the crescent moon formed by the new moon sword formation. Instead, it was because all the light in the world was focused on the man who was surrounded by everyone. In an instant, he seemed to have become the king of the heavens. All the light and heat in the world seemed to be focused on him. Scatter. The blazing sun fell, but it burst forth from his body again, and collided with the new moon that fell from the sky. There was a moment in the chaos between the heaven and earth. The heaven and earth did not darken, But the cultivators by the Qingming River felt that the heaven and earth seemed to become brighter in that instant. Although Lu Ping had expected this, he was still shocked when he saw the blazing sun-like pure yang aura in the sky. As for the two people beside Lu Ping, they were so shocked that they could not speak. The six pure yang Laozu did not appear in front of everyone. Only Lu Ping saw the figure of Xiao Baiyu when he walked out of the light of the rising sun. After that, the sky was shrouded by clouds. Everyone could only feel the pure yang aura that appeared one after another. As for what happened in the clouds, they really did not know. It seemed that the six pure yang Laozu had opened up a space in the sky. In fact, this was indeed the case. Lu Ping knew that once a cultivator reached the pure yang level, they were already at the peak of this world. Their mastery of spatial magic had also reached the peak. Once the pure yang cultivators started a war, the damage they caused to this world was too great. This kind of spatial magic that they had just mastered allowed them to temporarily open up a space in the void as a battlefield. In fact, this kind of temporarily open space was not stable, and the aftermath of the battle would still fall on this world. However, after being filtered by the space, the divine powers and magic arts that were occasionally missed would cause minimal damage to this world. Usually, these secrets could only be understood or even experienced after one's cultivation had reached a certain level. Perhaps in some sacred grounds with a long history and many experts, or large sects with deep foundations, these things would be popularized by cultivators who had not yet reached a certain level. Lu Ping was born in Zhenling. Although there had been a great sage Laozu who had great achievements 7,000 years ago, this Laozu might have been too outstanding. Not long after achieving pure yang, he transformed into a true spirit and disappeared. Therefore, the records after pure yang were almost blank. However, Lu Ping had obtained the pure yang soul of the Yingtian sect's Fei Tian Laozu in the Yingtian dojo. Although Fei Tian Laozu had already died, the memories contained in the pure yang soul had been preserved by Fei Tian Laozu using some kind of secret technique. After the passage of time, most of the memories contained in the pure yang soul had been lost. After Lu Ping accepted the pure yang soul, some of the memories were lost again. After Lu Ping overcame his first lightning tribulation, his Dharma idol and divine sense began fusing together due to the pure yang energy. Only then did the pure yang soul, which Lu Ping had refined for his own use, truly fuse with the dragon Dharma idol. The memories were lost once again, leaving behind only the things that were deeply rooted in Fei Tian Laozu. Previously, Deng Ming had been shocked by how clear Lu Ping's understanding of the many secrets of the world of cultivation was. In truth, it was because of the pure yang soul. However, the pure yang soul was one of Lu Ping's most important secrets. Naturally, he would not casually reveal it. At this time, many of the cultivators hiding on both sides of the Qingming River knew that the current situation was not something they could handle. The more timid ones had even left quietly, but most of the cultivators were attracted by this rare spectacle in the world of cultivation. Although they could not detect what was happening in the misty space, this did not stop the many cultivators from being enthusiastic about the pure yang Laozu's appearance. Some cultivators even tried to get close to the misty space in the sky until a moon flew out of the space. A mid-Dharma cultivator nearby was killed in one blow. Only then did the many cultivators retreat, but they were still unwilling to leave just like that. The misty space in the sky was tumbling violently. Clearly, there was a huge battle going on inside that affected the entire world of cultivation. In fact, the battle in the misty space had indeed entered a white-hot stage. Wang Xinqing had finally blocked half of Xiao Baiyu's attack with a kind of craziness that seemed like he was ready to die. Although it was only half, it was enough because this was a siege. There were still 4 other pure yang Laozu spying on Xiao Baiyu, who was surrounded by the spies, ready to give him a fatal blow the moment he revealed a flaw. Xiao Baiyu finally lost his relaxed demeanor from before. At this time, he was completely at a disadvantage, but that hint of mockery was still hanging from the corner of his mouth. Xiao Baiyu, do you still remember the reason you gave me back then? Eighth Sister Zhu's giggling, laughter always hid a hint of malice. Her seemingly vulgar and shrewd way of talking always had a kind of frightening feeling. The sect, just for your skyrend. Ha ha, from now on, the sky-splitting sword sect will no longer exist in this world. Who are you living for? You might as well surrender. Perhaps, for the sake of our past friendship, I will only destroy your bloodline and shatter the Dharma form in your heart core space. Perhaps, because of the nourishment of your real essence during the process of dispersing, you can still live for a few decades, enough for you to spend the rest of your life as a mortal. Otherwise, you will die today. At this time, Wang Xianqing also laughed wildly and said, Xiao Baiyu, you were born overseas. But now why do they want to lure you to the central region to besiege and kill you? How can the Crystal Palace not participate in such a grand event? I think the sky-splitting sword sect has long been destroyed in the world. Xiao Baiyu laughed coldly. What is this? Are you trying to disturb my mind? What a childish trick. Mu Yi Laozu snorted coldly and said, You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. It's useless to say more. This person is tricky, so we should cut the Gordian knot. Seeing that everyone had the upper hand at this time, Xiao Yaozi immediately laughed. Fellow Wang has a deep hatred, while fellow Zhu has an old hatred. Both of you don't want fellow Xiao to die quickly. Bailey Changtian once again formed a great mountain seal, and a giant Numa mountain formed on top of Xiao Baiyu's head. Xiao Baiyu suddenly felt as if a giant mountain was pressing down on him, and his body suddenly stagnated. Wang Xianqing and eighth sister Zhu immediately seized the opportunity. The new moon fell, and the flying fork approached him. However, a silver light suddenly appeared, and the new moon shattered. The flying fork fell, and even the giant Numa mountain in the air collapsed. However, Xiao Baiyu still took a step back, and blood slowly flowed from the corner of his mouth. This person's magical power is really unfathomable. We must not let him live. Fellow Taoists, don't hold back anymore. Bailey Changtian was obviously shocked by the power of Xiao Baiyu's sword. 3 pure Yang Laozu's supreme magical power were broken by a single sword. The so-called one sword breaks 10,000 laws was nothing more than this. Bailey Changtian immediately joined Mu Yi Laozu's camp to end the battle quickly. In this case, let's end the battle quickly. It's finally letting him off easy. Wang Xianqing was about to rush forward, but he saw that Xiao Baiyu actually laughed again. Wang Xianqing suddenly became furious and said, What's there to laugh about when you're about to die? Do you think you're dying too slowly? Xiao Baiyu's sword broke Mu Yi Laozu's 10,000 trees forest, but he didn't expect that there was a green light hidden in it. Although he managed to destroy it, he couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood again. However, he still laughed and said, Wang Xianqing, this Xiao has already said that you always talk too much nonsense. Wang Xianqing was furious and was about to open his mouth to scold Xiao Baiyu when he suddenly heard a long roar. A person laughed and said, Xiao Baiyu, are you dead yet? Wang Xianqing and the others all paled. The Lingyun Valley's Xiao Yaozi's expression became even more unsightly. Then, they heard Xiao Baiyu laugh and say, If you were one step late, I would turn into a ghost and burn all your feathers. The person who came shouted angrily, You dare? Be careful, I will leave right now. Xiao Baiyu laughed and said, If you leave, I will definitely burn all your feathers. Wahahaha. The person who came laughed exaggeratedly and said, I heard that you invited a group of pure young cultivators to fight. I naturally have to dress up properly for such a grand event. That's why I'm slightly late. As he spoke, a streak of light directly entered the clouds from the horizon, and then he clicked his tongue and said, Who am I seeing? Isn't this the Lingyun Valley Xiao Yaozi? Come, let's get to know each other first. Let's see how many rays of light you've cultivated in your rainbow transformation divine ability in these 300 years. The Xiao Yaozi said coldly, Bastard Yang, you better think clearly. Our 6 sacred lands are working together now. If you rashly interfere, aren't you afraid of the 6 sacred lands condemning you for the peacock race in the future? The person who came was furious and cursed, Motherfucker, if you want to fight, then fight. Why are you talking so much nonsense? I hate bullying others the most in my life. The Xiao Yaozi didn't say a word and suddenly attacked. The person who came cried out strangely and said, Xiao Yaozi, you're so naughty. You actually plagiarized the technique of your ancestor and dared to make the first move. As he spoke, a five-colored feather fan appeared in the person's hand, and he waved it lightly. A cluster of golden feathers in the five-colored feather fan glowed explosively, and the Xiaoyao Zi's divine ability was actually instantly dissolved into nothingness. 5-element spiritual light fan. The Xiaoyao Zi exclaimed, and the other pure yang cultivators, including Lao Zhu and Xiao Baiyu, were stunned. He had seen a dog relying on its master's power, but when had he ever seen a dog relying on its master's power to help? Yang Wangdi was instantly enraged. When he heard that there was going to be a fight between pure yang cultivators, not only did he put on his most gorgeous attire, he even stole one of the inherited treasures of the Peacock King, the 5-element spiritual light fan, while his royal brother was doting on his concubine. It was a perfect chance for him to use it to beat that bastard. In an instant, the Xiaoyao Zi had suffered greatly. No matter what remarkable power he used to fight the enemy, Yang Wangdi only needed to wave the 5-elements spiritual light fan in his hand. With Yang Wangdi's level of cultivation that was not weaker than the Xiaoyao Zi's, the power of any remarkable power that the Xiaoyao Zi used would be mostly weakened by the 5-elements spiritual light fan before it could even be used. The little bit of power that was left was not even enough for Yang Wangdi to sneeze. Although the 5-elements spiritual light fan was a famous treasure in the cultivation world, it did not have an effect that was too heaven-defying. Yang Wangdi was not Xiao Baiyu. It was enough for him to suppress his old enemy, the Xiaoyao Zi, to the point that he had no power to fight back. If he wanted to share the burden of another opponent for Xiao Baiyu, Yang Wangdi had always been able to fight with ease, so he would never do this kind of thing. Without the Xiaoyao Zi, the pressure on Xiao Baiyu was less than before, but it should not be forgotten that Xiao Baiyu was injured when he was besieged by the 5 people, so his strength was also weakened to a certain extent. Therefore, although the Xiaoyao Zi was restrained by Yang Shouchang, Wang Xianqing and the other 3 could still suppress the injured Xiao Baiyu. As for the Xiaoyao Zi, it was not impossible for him to help, but no one was willing to provoke the Peacock royalty. The Peacock royalty was known to be the #1 demon race whose strength was even above the green sea snake. One must know that the green sea snake family could contain the Crystal Palace in the East China Sea. So where was the strength of the Peacock royalty? Perhaps no one knew this boundary better than the pure Sun Laozu of the 5 Holy Lands. Oh, the Xiaoyao Zi, I forgot one thing. When I came here, I passed by the Magic Cloud City. It seems that it is being besieged by Mara's army. If it falls, won't the defense line formed by the Lingyun Valley and the Skyward Pavilion against the Endless Mountain lose an important fulcrum? Holding the 5-element spiritual light fan, Yang Shouchang seemed to suddenly think of something and kindly reminded, after all, Mara is the enemy of both the human and demon races. The old man thinks that it is better for you to send a message to the Lingyun Valley as soon as possible. At this time, the Xiaoyao Zi could be said to be restrained by Yang Shouchang, who was holding the 5-element spiritual light fan. Upon hearing this, he immediately snorted and said, "It's better for your excellency to worry about this matter. The Lingyun Valley has also investigated the Mara's army in advance. With the nearly 10,000 years of operation of the Magic Cloud City, it is completely impregnable." Really? Yang Shouchang dragged his tone to express his doubt, but when I passed by, I seemed to find that there were a lot of Mara's army gathered. I only found 2 Azuras before, but who am I? Soon, I found 2 more hidden Azuras among the Mara's army. Haha, it is not easy to hide from me. Are you sure that the Magic Cloud City can cope with it? The Xiaoyao Zi's expression suddenly changed. For Azuras? Wasn't there only 1 Azura in the news from the Magic Cloud City? Why did Yang Shouchang change it twice? Is this guy telling the truth or not? According to normal circumstances, the unfettered one would probably just laugh it off when faced with Yang Shouchang's rambling. Yet, why did he just happen to be slightly restless now? Looking at the serious look on Yang Wangdi's face, the Xiaoyao Zi couldn't tell whether the words of this unreliable younger brother of the Peacock King were true or not for a moment. When experts fought, There was no room for him to let his imagination run wild, let alone when he was being suppressed. When Yang Wangdi saw that his opponent was so easily disturbed by him, he immediately fanned the five elements spiritual light fan in his hand left and right. In a moment, the sage-like Xiaoyao Zi's hair was disheveled and his clothes were ragged. He didn't look carefree at all. Haha, Xiaoyao Zi, you don't have to worry. Haha, unfettered one, you don't have to worry about that. I'm a righteous man. How could I sit back and watch the magic cloud city be destroyed? I've already sent a message back to the endless mountain range to send reinforcements. No matter what, we have to kill Devil's army. However, if the people of the magic cloud city fail to defend the city during this process, my men will have to occupy the city first. No matter what, my men can't be destroyed by Devil Luo, can they? Yang Wangdi paused, and his expression suddenly turned solemn. He was the younger brother of the Peacock King, so he had the noble bearing and domineering bearing of the Peacock royalty to command the demon beasts of the endless mountain range. Coupled with his gorgeous clothes, he instantly looked like a king of the world. He swept the spiritual light fan in his hand and suddenly shouted, "Hey, Xiaoyao Zi, take this." The unfettered one had already been suppressed by Yang Wangdi to the point of losing his temper. When he suddenly saw Yang Wangdi, who had always been frivolous, suddenly execute the divine ability with such a serious expression, he didn't have to think to know that it was surely a divine ability with an extremely formidable might. The first thing the Xiaoyaozi wanted to do was to dodge quickly. However, it was extremely difficult for him to dodge this magical ability when he was completely suppressed. It was inevitable that he looked a little embarrassed in a hurry. However, unlike the marvelous technique in his imagination, the might of Yang Wangdi's divine ability was sufficient, but it seemed to be extremely rigid. It didn't change as the unfettered one dodged, and instead, it swept away the cloud barrier behind the unfettered one for an instant. Although it was only for a short moment, the cultivators gathered on the Qingming River didn't lack eyesight. Thus, they saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The majestic Yang Wangdi was like an immortal god that had descended to the world. Colorful rays of light dyed the world and swept away all the demons and monsters in the world. Unfortunately, there just happened to be such an embarrassed figure that was rolling and crawling to dodge the colorful rays of light that swept across the world, confirming his identity as a demon and monster. Just when the seventh pure Yang Laozu appeared, the cultivators hidden inside and outside the Qingming River were once again silent. It just so happened that at this moment, the cloud space only opened for a moment and then closed again. The many cultivators on the Qingming River finally recovered from the shock and exclaimed one after another, "What did we just see? Could the person who was beaten into a sorry state just now be the Lingyun Valley's pure young senior Laozu Xiaoyaozi? How is this possible? Then who was the person who beat senior Xiaoyaozi until he pissed his pants?" A sharp-eyed cultivator immediately exclaimed, "Isn't that person the Peacock Royalty's royal brother, Yang Shouchong?" It turned out that the gap between the two was so big. It was said that the Peacock King's younger brother was an insignificant character, but it turned out that he had such strength. The rumors were really unbelievable. He was worthy of being the Peacock King's brother. In an instant, the noise on the Qingming River became louder and louder. It was even louder than the clamor. Lu Ping quickly discovered that something was wrong. It wasn't that people were talking about it, but that something was approaching. "It's coming." Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He quickly turned his gaze towards the direction of the Northwest Canal that was connected to the Qingming River. At this time, many cultivators gathered on the Qingming River also quickly discovered the abnormality and turned their gazes towards the northwest. However, nothing appeared in the northwest direction. Instead, the northeast side of the sky flashed with colorful rays of light again. The cultivators' gazes were once again attracted to it. They saw 7 different colored feathered fans coming from the horizon. They once again swept away the cloud space in the sky and disappeared into it. The 8th pure yang cultivator, Tian Xian Sect's 7th fan Laozu. Chapter 1162. 7 feather fans of different colors entered the cloudy space one after another. Everyone knew that this could only represent the one and only pure Yang Laozu in the cultivation world, and that was Tianqian sect's pure Yang cultivator, 7 Laozu. Mu Yi Laozu's endless falling trees were immediately blocked by 7 Laozu. The 7 feather fans shone with different lights, and like a gale passing through, they turned Mu Yi Laozu's boundless forest upside down. 7 Fan, how dare you come here at this time? Are you afraid that Mara's army on the sea will raid your nest? 7 Laozu was still dressed like an old farmer, and he said indifferently, it will only take 2 days to go back and forth. I can wait. Mu Yi Laozu said coldly, 7 Fan, who do you think you are? The illusion of the boundless forest that was destroyed without a trace suddenly rose again, as if it would never be destroyed, and once again, it drowned 7 Laozu in the boundless forest. However, 7 treasured fans suddenly rose in the sky. 1 fan blew wind, 1 fan blew fire, 1 fan blew water, 1 fan sealed ice, 1 fan blew thousands of swords to the sun, 1 fan blew endless falling trees, and 1 fan blew yellow dust. It was as if the mighty power of heaven and earth had descended. Although the boundless forest was destroyed again and again, Mu Yi Laozu's face became worse and worse. 7 Laozu rose expressionlessly from the endless falling trees with his hands behind his back. Mu Yi Laozu, who was on the opposite side, finally could not hold back anymore. With a trace of shock, he said, 7 Feather Fan, you've finally refined it. 7 Laozu was still so indifferent, and he said unhurriedly, in the end, it's just a replica. The real 7 Feather Fan can only become a real heaven-opening artifact when the 7 feathers of the real 7 Feather Fan are united. However, this is only 7 feather fans, and it can't be united at all. I didn't expect this. Many generations of Tianqian sect cultivators could only promote these 7 feather fans to a first tribulation spiritual treasure. I didn't expect you to successfully pass the second tribulation in your hands. Although the 7 fans can't be united, who dares to say that they are weaker than a pure young spiritual treasure? Tianqian sect was once a large sect that had split from Wuxing school. The two sects were entangled with each other, and after thousands of years, they had some understanding of each other's foundation. The method of imitation of the 7 feather fan was obtained by Tianqian sect from Wuxing school. However, Wuxing school eventually gave up on refining it because they found that the feather fans could not be united. However, in order to create a supreme treasure that could suppress the sect, Tianqian sect spent thousands of years, and through the efforts of several generations of cultivators, finally gathered the 7 ice feather fan and finally promoted it to a second tribulation spiritual treasure. Its power was even greater than that of the 5 elements spiritual light fan. Although the 5 elements spiritual light fan was a method of refining spiritual treasures passed down in the past, there was a special method to use this kind of spiritual treasure, and there were various restrictions on the cultivators. Moreover, it was just a substitute magic treasure deduced from Peng Doran's supreme magical power. In terms of power, the 5 elements spiritual light fan might be better than any feather fan. However, although the 7 feather fans could not be united, they were a set after all. When the 7 fans united, the 5 elements spiritual light fan would have to retreat. Xiaoyaozi was suppressed by Yang Shouchang, and although Mu Yi Laozu tried his best to resist, he was also easily held up by the 7 fans. The battle that had been besieging Xiao Baiyu turned from 5 to 1 to 4 to 1, and then to 3 to 1. Xiao Baiyu laughed wildly and said, "Guys, now that the offense and defense have changed, it's time for me to show you what I've learned over the years. One sword to break the sky." It was the word break that Xiao Baiyu personally carved on the stone tablet in Jiaodaoren in the past. Bailey Changtian and Laozu couldn't even form a seal in front of Xiao Baiyu. Bailey Changtian's attainments in spatial magical power were extremely profound, but the flying sword in Xiao Baiyu's hand was the one that Jiaodaoren used to split the sky. That heaven-breaking sword really broke the sky. So what was a mere spatial magical power? In the face of the power of splitting the sky and splitting the earth, it was only a joke. Even if Xiao Baiyu wasn't Jiaodaoren, he still couldn't be controlled by Bailey Changtian's magical power. One sword to split the sky. It was the word open that Jiao Daoran carved on the stone tablet. The flying fork array formed by the 36 flying forks in front of 8th Sister Zhu could no longer take shape. 8th Sister Zhu saw that the situation wasn't good and hurriedly combined the 36 flying forks into one, but there were still 6 that broke before they could fuse. Originally a second tribulation spiritual treasure, but now it had fallen to the level of a first tribulation spiritual treasure. Without these 6 flying forks, the flying fork array could no longer take shape. 8th Sister Zhu's face suddenly distorted, but in the face of the power of that sword, she couldn't take another step forward. One sword to bury the sky. Obtaining the word bury on the stone tablet was also the sword with the most murderous aura in Xiao Baiyu's swordsmanship. It was also the sword that made Xiao Baiyu famous when he used it to kill LV Taiqing. Among the 3 sky-opening sword moves that Xiao Baiyu comprehended, the most brilliant and vast sword move was this sky-breaking sword move, which suppressed the enemy with momentum and subdued the enemy without fighting. The most powerful one was this sky-opening sword move, which could confront head-on and could be regarded as the best swordsmanship in the cultivation world. But the sky-burying sword move was the most powerful sword move. This sword was headed straight for Wang Xianqing. Back then, LV Taiqing and the Purple Sun Palace had been provoked by Xiao Baiyu's words. In addition, they had underestimated him and didn't dodge this sword. They were confident that they could withstand it, but they never expected to be killed by Xiao Baiyu. Learning from his previous mistake, Wang Xianqing wouldn't face the attack head-on. A Grade 2 Tribulation Numinous Treasure flying sword in his hand transformed into 24 bright moons in midair. He used the second supreme sword art of the Purple Sun Palace, the full moon sword art. However, the 24 moons were destroyed one by the heaven's burial sword, and the flying sword flew away with a mournful wail. Wang Xuanqing's expression changed again, and he didn't dare to block the sword anymore. He dodged far away, and the remaining sword chi broke through the cloud space and disappeared. The flying sword returned to Wang Xuanqing's hand. The artifact spirit in it was already on the verge of death. Even if he managed to save it, the flying sword would probably drop a grade and would never be able to advance in the future unless he put it back in the furnace and reforged it again. Just as the 7 Laozu arrived above the Qingming River, the battle cries from the northwest finally approached. The cultivators on the Qingming River exclaimed one after another. Obviously, they already knew what had happened. Following a loud bang, Mara's army surged up the Qingming River along the canal. The first to bear the brunt was the Northern Alliance's treasure ship whose sail had been cut by Xiao Baiyu. My friends in front, quickly intercept them. Join forces with our friends from Magic Cloud City, the Yuan brothers, and our Peacock royalty to kill this group of Mara's army. Far behind the Mara's army, a loud shout came from afar. This group of Mara's army was actually driven here by someone, and they didn't look very powerful. Moreover, with the 3 major forces of Magic Cloud City, the Yuan family, and the Peacock royalty involved, it seemed like it was indeed a good time to kill them. However, before the Mara's army could reach them, more than 10 beams of light suddenly shot out from the treasure ship and rushed towards the Mara's army. The cultivators from the various clans who were ready to fight immediately stopped in their tracks. What a joke! When did the Northern Alliance's treasure ship have so many Dharma adepts? And all of them were mid-Dharma adepts. Very quickly, someone recognized the origins of these people from the beams of light. Chang Sankai, Sun Liuhe, and Zhu Zhuan of the Ninexian Tower, Su Jin and Guo Wanqing of the Ziyang Palace, Mu Changxing and Qin Wuliang of the Wuxing School, Sima Chongfeng of the Skyward Pavilion. Surprisingly, most of them were direct adepts from the 5 Holy Lands. Only 2 or 3 mid-Dharma adepts were from the Northern Alliance in the past, but now they were following Hanya Laozu. The 5 Holy Lands were very cunning. Just based on the direct adepts from these Holy Lands alone, each of them had few opponents of the same level as them. Even if the cultivators who surrounded the Northern Alliance's treasure ship this time were able to break the protective array of the treasure ship, how many of them could survive under the attack of these direct adepts from the Holy Lands? Moreover, there were still these pure young Laozu in the sky who had long hidden themselves. If not for Xiao Baiyu's appearance, All of them combined would not even be enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of a single pure young Laozu. Of course, these people did not know that the 5 Holy Lands had actually set up such a huge formation because of Xiao Baiyu. They only thought that if Xiao Baiyu's arrival had not ruined the pure young Laozu's plot and forced them to show up to stop them, these pure young Laozu would probably have killed them. Inexplicably, these cultivators who did not know the truth more or less felt grateful to Xiao Baiyu. Even if they did not feel grateful, at least their impression of Xiao Baiyu, the 7 fans Laozu, and the others was at least better than the pure young Laozu of the 5 Holy Lands. Lu Ping secretly shook his head. If they had known that the Northern Alliance female cultivator who had previously spread the news was just a plot by the 6 Holy Lands against Xiao Baiyu, and that the news had suddenly spread in the cultivation world, there was an 80 to 90% chance that Xiao Baiyu was the one behind it, adding fuel to the fire. Who knew what these people would think? More than 10 mid-Dharma adepts had formed a line of defense in front of the treasure ship, blocking the attack of the chased-away Mara army in one fell swoop. However, in the midst of a few explosive roars, Azuras suddenly sprang out from Mara's army and rushed towards the 10 or so disciples of the Holy Lands. There were also a few Jade Mara following behind them. What? Even the disciples of the Holy Lands were shocked at this time. In the face of the attack of the Azuras, they had no choice but to dodge in a panic. They did not even have time to think about how the Magic Cloud City and the Peacock Clan cultivators would be able to drive away the Mara army with Azuras. At this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly fell from the cloudy space in the sky. After Wang Xianqing dodged the buried heaven sword technique that had defeated the full moon sword technique, it fell silently on the treasure ship that was anchored on the Qingming River and could not move. Was it Wang Xuanqing's intention, or was it Xiao Baiyu's intention? The formation shield of the Northern Alliance treasure ship, which had already been vulnerable to a single blow, suddenly shattered. The sword light went straight down, directly breaking the treasure cabin space, and a large spirit vein that was imprisoned in the treasure cabin space suddenly leaked out. All of the treasure ship's defensive measures were destroyed by the sword light, and the rich spirit chi that leaked out immediately attracted the attention of the Azuras who were originally rushing towards the 10 or so disciples of the Holy Lands. Following closely behind them was the tens of thousands of Mara army. Chapter 1163. None of the sects would allow their heirs to fight against the Azuras, unless it was a disaster like Chungling Island. Under the attack of the 4 Azuras, the heirs of the 5 major sects immediately scattered. However, at this moment, the Northern Alliance's treasure ship was accidentally destroyed by Xiao Baiyu's sword. It was also the treasure cabin that contained at least one large spirit meridian. Dense spiritual chi immediately leaked on the surface of the Qingming River, attracting the attention of the Azuras who were originally charging at the few air cultivators. Following closely behind them were nearly 10,000 big and small Azuras. Like moths that had discovered a light, they all swarmed toward the treasured ship. The Northern Alliance's treasure ship is finished? Lu Ping sighed softly. In reality, the treasure ship was still trying its best to resist. Although the spirit meridian in the treasure cabin had been leaked, the treasure ship could still use the spirit meridian to perform a part of its magical powers. Countless talismans that were engraved on the treasure ship that could still be used were all activated by the Northern Alliance cultivators. Many of these powerful magical powers could even kill Xue Mara, or even severely injure Yu Mara. However, although the treasure ship that had lost its protective formation had dealt a heavy blow to Mara's army, the remaining Mara still continued to attack the treasure ship. What are you waiting for? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to annihilate Mara's army. Xian Yun Laozu was chasing after Mara's army. When he saw the formation on the Qingming River, how could he not understand what had happened here? However, he hated Mara's army for destroying Magic Cloud City. At this time, he could not care less about the 5 Holy Lands and the Northern Alliance's treasure ship. He just blindly encouraged the Dharma adepts who were watching to attack together and kill all the Mara who had broken through Magic Cloud City. Xian Yun Laozu was the first to rush up and chase after an Azura into the treasure ship's treasure cabin. Following closely behind, Yang Jieshi, who was dressed in luxurious clothes from Peacock royalty, also entered the treasure cabin, leaving behind a brilliant light curtain. Even the peacock race was so gorgeous and flashy there. Oh no, that Hanya must be in the treasure cabin at this time. We must not let peacock royalty and Xian Yun obtain Zhao Doran's handwritten letter. Someone in the crowd let out a shout, which immediately alerted the cultivators of various sects who were watching from the Qingming River. With one person taking the lead, the crowd clamored one after another and charged toward the treasured ship to fight with the Devil Luo army. The entire treasured ship suddenly became a battlefield. Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were also eager to try. They said, "Junior brother Lu, why don't we go up? Maybe we can get something useful from the treasure ship. We don't need Zhao Doran's handwritten letter." The construction of our sect's treasure ship has entered a critical stage. At this moment, any item on the treasure ship can help us. At this time, Lu Ping suddenly asked, "Did you guys find out where those cultivators from the Holy Lands went?" Lu Tianyuan was stunned and said, "Did they not join in the battle against Mara's army on the treasure ship?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, "There are at least 11 or 12 cultivators from the Holy Lands. If they started to clear out Mara's army just now, it's impossible that they didn't see any of them. They must have escaped in the chaos just now. Strange. Where did they go?" Tian Tian also found something wrong at this time. There really wasn't a single cultivator from the Holy Lands fighting with Mara on the Qingming River. Instead, there were many cultivators from the Northern Alliance who were originally on the treasure ship. As soon as Tian Tian finished speaking, he saw Lu Ping's expression suddenly go grim, and then he swiftly turned around and swung his hand, causing a strand of sword chi to slash behind Lu Ping's arm that was slashing down. Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were shocked, and they hurriedly turned around to take precautions. Yet they saw Lu Ping's seemingly material sword light was actually easily received by a middle-aged cultivator with a stiff expression with a single palm. In their state of shock, Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were about to execute their divine abilities. Yet they were stopped by Lu Ping, who stretched out his hand from the side. Right when the two of them were puzzled, they heard Lu Ping say curiously, "Senior Long Huai, how did you come out?" Even though this stiff cultivator before them was much more exquisite than the middle-aged cultivator with a simple and crude appearance that Lu Ping had seen all those years ago in the perished secret grounds, it was only in comparison. In the eyes of an ordinary person, it wouldn't be strange at all if this stiff cultivator was given the nickname Wooden Man. This person was none other than Long Huai's avatar that Lu Ping had seen when he entered the perished secret grounds all those years ago. At this moment, the cultivation of this avatar had obviously improved greatly compared to before, and in Lu Ping's senses, the aura of this avatar was practically similar to that of a great Dharma adept. Even though Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were stopped by Lu Ping, they still seemed to be slightly surprised and bewildered after they glanced at each other. Such a figure had actually soundlessly arrived behind the three of them, and if he really had malicious intent, the three of them wouldn't have been able to dodge in advance. However, based on Lu Ping's expression, it was obvious that the two of them were extremely familiar with each other, and the vigilance in their hearts slowly lowered. The Longhuai ancestor glanced expressionlessly at Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian, who stood behind Lu Ping, and then he said, "A few days ago, the world responded to the creation of the heavens, and my main body sensed it as well. It just so happened that this body had made some breakthroughs and was able to walk out of that cage to take a look. So I followed the aura and rushed over here. I never expected that I would meet you." Lu Ping was shocked in his heart, but he still smiled and said, "In that case, Junior congratulates Senior's great improvement in cultivation." Long Huai nodded expressionlessly, and then he looked at Lu Ping and said, "You really didn't disappoint me. We haven't seen each other for a short period of over 100 years, yet you've actually grown to such an extent. The old man's judgment all those years ago really wasn't wrong. This is all thanks to the fortune of meeting Senior all those years ago and Senior's intention to fulfill my wish." Long Huai shook his head and said, "The old man has experienced the passage of time, and there are many people that have tried to fulfill his wish. But up until now, perhaps only you are able to lend the old man a hand in the future." Lu Ping was stunned in his heart, and for a time, there were numerous questions in his heart. He instantly had guesses, but it added even more questions to his heart. However, when he thought about how Long Huai still asked for his help earlier, Lu Ping asked in a probing manner, "What's the creation of the heavens you sensed, senior?" Long Huai glanced at Lu Ping and said, "You possess a creation of the heavens as well, and it was bestowed by the old man a few thousand years ago to a cultivator that possessed a rather natural talent in the Tao of formations that entered the perished secret area. Originally, the old man thought that he might be able to borrow the strength of the old man in the future. Unfortunately, it brought some trouble to the old man instead. I never expected that this treasure would be obtained by you in the end, and it has even fused with your soul and become one with you." Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were already extremely shocked since a long time ago. Never had they imagined that they'd come from the northern sea to the extreme south of the Central Territories. Originally, they only wanted to witness the scene of all the cultivators in the world fighting for a creation of the heavens, yet never had they imagined that their junior brother would possess a creation of the heavens. Lu Ping's expression changed violently as well. He naturally knew that the creation of the heavens Long Huai spoke of was the ultimate treasure of the Void sect that recorded the 9 great foundation formations and the divine perception carving secret technique. At the same time, that golden scale that had already transformed into the reverse scale of the Dharma idol had confirmed Long Huai's guess that the Void sect was a pawn that Long Huai had set up all those years ago. But at the same time, it caused Lu Ping to increase his suspicions of the relationship between Long Huai and Zhao Daoren from all those years ago. But when he saw that Long Huai seemed to have no intention of taking it back, Lu Ping asked, "Then the creation of the heavens that senior sensed this time is the treasure in my possession?" Long Huai shook his head and said, "It isn't for the sake of the treasure in your possession, nor is it for the treasure in that vessel. It's for the sake of another treasure that caused all the treasures in the world to respond to it." Lu Ping's heart sank, yet he still asked, "Another treasure?" Long Huai said, "Yes, that treasure seems to have an indescribable relationship with me. However, only appeared for an instant at that time, and then no traces of it could be found after that. It ought to have been refined with the heart's blood by someone as soon as it took form, causing it to completely become the possession of another. If I want to find it in the future, then unless I see it in person, otherwise, even the old man's main body would probably be unable to find it." Lu Ping's heart eased up slightly when he heard this, and he said, "Senior, do you know the details of that treasure?" Long Huai shook his head and said, "I don't. This treasure has definitely just taken form, so its might isn't sufficient, yet its potential is enormous. Moreover, it possesses an extremely important relationship with the 7th patriarch, otherwise, it wouldn't cause the world to respond to it." The sword of true spirit that had just overcome the first heavenly tribulation had only just taken form according to the Longhuai ancestor, but in the hands of Lu Ping, it was capable of annihilating the great cultivator Nanyu Laozu with a single strike. Lu Tianyuan and Chen Shi, who stood behind Lu Ping, had already been shaken by the numerous secrets that the Longhuai ancestor spoke of since a long time ago. Lu Ping composed his mind and continued asking, "Senior, do you have any instructions for me?" The Longhuai ancestor's stunned gaze finally moved slightly at this moment, and he looked towards the Northern Alliance's treasured vessel that had transformed into a battlefield on Azure Netherworld River. He said, "The treasure on that vessel seems to be related to the old man as well. Perhaps it'll be of use to you in the future, so it's best if you obtain it." Lu Ping glanced at the treasured vessel that was in a mess, and then he glanced at the enormous phenomena that surged in the sky, and he couldn't help but reveal a slightly troubled expression. That person has left. It's actually the spatial divine ability." The Longhuai ancestor's stiff face finally revealed a rare trace of surprise. Lu Ping was slightly stunned, and he asked reflexively, "Who?" "The person with the heaven creation relic is now tens of miles away. The old man can sense the aura of the heaven creation relic. That person is now heading north. Follow the old man." Lu Ping was slightly stunned, and he saw the Longhuai ancestor who was about to leave suddenly turn around, and a sharp murderous aura quickly shrouded the two people behind Lu Ping. These two have listened to the old man's many words. If it's useless, then the old man will deal with them. The sharp, murderous aura instantly shrouded Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian. They could feel that if there was even the slightest movement, the person in front of them would definitely kill them on the spot. Even Lu Ping might not be able to save them. Chapter 1164. Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian seemed to be stared at by a ferocious beast in an instant. If they made the slightest movement, they would inevitably suffer a fatal blow from the Longhuai ancestor. Lu Ping hurriedly stopped in front of the two and said, "Senior, these two are from the same sect. They will never reveal what happened today." Same sect? The Longhuai ancestor seemed to ponder something, and then said, "That may not be true. The old man has seen many things in the secret plane where disciples kill each other, brothers kill each other, father and son kill each other because of a treasure. They can't be trusted." Lu Ping's expression changed drastically. He abruptly flicked his hands, and the two little blue snakes caught the two black seeds in their mouths. However, Lu Ping seemed to be unable to withstand the force and was forced to take a few steps back. The two black seeds in the little snake's mouths suddenly exploded, instantly absorbing all of Lu Ping's profound essence. The seeds then turned into two rapidly growing black poisonous vines. Lu Ping's eyes widened in shock. Lu Ping's eyes widened in shock, and the two black seeds suddenly exploded, instantly absorbing Lu Ping's profound essence. "Senior," the Longhuai ancestor's eyes flashed with surprise and said, "You can actually discover and withstand the old man's attack. You really did not disappoint the old man, and even far exceeded the old man's expectations." Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were already frightened by the sudden exchange between the two sides. At this time, they realized that if it was not for Lu Ping's previous intervention, the two would have already been killed by the person in front of them. Looking at the two rattans swaying on the ground, it was obviously a kind of poisonous thing that grows quickly by devouring spiritual qi. Once the seeds were planted without anyone knowing, they would have already been sucked dry. Devouring poisonous vine. There really is such a poisonous thing in the cultivation world, Tian Tian exclaimed. He and Lu Tianyuan had already released their protective magic weapons almost at the same time. Just two pea-sized seeds were able to shake Lu Ping back, and this was just an incarnation. Lu Ping suppressed the shock in his heart and said, "Senior, this junior can guarantee with his life that these two senior brothers will never speak of today's matter." Ancestor Long Huai glanced at the three of them with a scrutinizing gaze, and then he said abruptly, "Fine, I'll believe you this time. But the three of you have to be clearly aware that so long as the matter today is leaked in the slightest, then I'm even able to annihilate the sects behind all of you with a flip of my hand. Don't say I didn't warn you." Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian were both silent. At this time, the Longhuai ancestor glanced at the clouds in midair, then turned around and went around the other side of the Qingming River. From Lu Ping's point of view, it seemed like he wanted to go around the treasure ship and the 8 pure young Laozu who were still fighting in the sky. "You come with the old man." Lu Ping looked at the two senior brothers behind him and saw that their faces were not looking good. No one would feel good when their life was threatened. Lu Ping guaranteed their safety with his life, but in their eyes, it was a kind of trampling on their dignity. Although the trampler was not Lu Ping, the two of them could not show their inner gratitude on their faces. Lu Ping understood their inner feelings. For people like Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian, any consolation would be unnecessary. Lu Ping said, "Two senior brothers, I will go with this senior first." Now, two senior brothers might as well try to break into the treasure ship, but if there is a battle in midair, two senior brothers must not stay and retreat quickly. Tian Tian said, "You can go by yourself. Be careful, the two of us can still handle this." Lu Ping followed behind the Longhuai ancestor and went around the battlefield. With one step, he was already on the other side of the Qingming River, which made Lu Ping a little dumbfounded. At this time, there were 8 pure young Laozu fighting in the sky, and the battle on the Qingming River had also expanded to a radius of a few miles with the treasure ship as the center. The space turbulence caused by the Dharma Adepts battle made 5 people within a radius of 10 miles dare to directly use space magic to teleport. Previously, when the Longhuai ancestor said that Hanya Laozu had already used space to teleport away from the treasure ship, Lu Ping was still a little surprised. However, now that he saw that the Longhuai ancestor had really used space magic, how could Lu Ping not be surprised? Fortunately, although the Qingming River was wide, it was only about 10 miles. With Lu Ping's eyesight, he could clearly see the back of the Longhuai ancestor. Lu Ping did not dare to use space magic. The conveyance light under his feet flashed continuously, and in just a short time, he had already reached the other side of the Qingming River. At this time, the Longhuai ancestor had already walked to a forest on the shore, and it was unknown what he was thinking about. It looked like he was waiting for Lu Ping. That person should have a treasure that can be integrated into his body to strengthen his body. When the Longhuai ancestor saw that Lu Ping had followed him, he suddenly said something without any rhyme or reason. Lu Ping did not react for a moment, and he opened his mouth to say, "What?" The Longhuai ancestor looked at Lu Ping and said, "That person who has the heaven-opening relic should have a treasure that can temporarily strengthen his body, and there should also be a special teleportation array that has already been set up by an array master beforehand. This is a one-time teleportation array that has been passed down since ancient times, but because the cost of building such a teleportation array was too high, it gradually became extinct in the cultivation world. I did not expect to see such a teleportation array again this time. This one-time teleportation array was a type of array that could be used in the process of changing positions, so it was very important to protect the cultivator during the teleportation process. This was also the reason why it was so difficult to pass down this type of array in the cultivation world. The Longhuai ancestor seemed to have seen through Lu Ping's doubts, and he continued to say, "The reason why the old man can still use space magic teleportation in this unstable state is because this clone of the old man is strong enough, and it is more like he is using teleportation magic than teleportation." Lu Ping suddenly understood. The clone of the Longhuai ancestor was made from spiritual materials that were 9,000 years old, and the quality of the materials was far superior to the clone that Lu Ping had made from an 8,000-year-old willow tree, Lu Xiaoping. This clone's body could completely withstand teleportation in this kind of space turbulence, just like how Dharma adepts could use teleportation magic in the process of battle. Of course, to be able to use teleportation magic in the hands of Dharma adepts, a treasure had to at least be of the quality of a spirit-nurturing treasure. Otherwise, during the process of battle, before the treasure had even collided with the opponent's treasure, it would have been destroyed in the process of teleportation. There was no doubt that Lu Ping's physical body was strong among the same level of practitioners, but after going through the first lightning tribulation, it was only equivalent to a spirit-level treasure. It was far from the point where it could ignore the damage caused by the spatial turbulence. Lu Ping flew all the way behind the Longhuai ancestor, and it was not until they were more than 200 miles away that he suddenly stopped in midair. "This seems a little tricky," the Longhuai ancestor suddenly said. "There are quite a number of practitioners around the practitioner who is holding the heaven-opening artifact, and they seem to have high levels of training. The old man can help you hold them off, but you can handle the remaining one yourself. How about that?" Without needing Longhuai to say anything, Lu Ping's divine will had already detected the movement in the distance. There were 11 mid-Dharma adepts gathered around a late Dharma adept, and it was obvious that they were the 11 direct adepts from the 5 Holy Lands. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment and said, "Senior, what you mean is that you want me to hold that late Dharma adept back, and after you've taken care of the direct adepts from the Holy Lands, you and I will join forces to deal with Hanya Laozu?"